be the biggest snowstorm that they have experienced in 10 years. We got watches that are up. The 95 corridor, of course, is kind of the end marker of this storm, so we have a little more time to play with. Today is a great day to prep, and in fact, you have a little bit of time tomorrow morning, depending on how far south you live. Richmond, cities that are up in the Northeast. Richmond, you guys have had a blockbuster winter so far when it comes to snow. You're the exception here for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. You've had more snow than New York City, than Boston, and we're going to add on 5 to 8 inches of snow with this. So I guess one benefit for Richmond, you guys are not new to the park. You guys have had snow this year. You guys have had the prep. You've had the practice. What you have not had is this, ice. Richmond is looking at the potential here of crippling ice, more than 1/2 an inch. The amount of weight that puts on power lines and trees is extreme. This is when you're laying in bed and all you hear is crack, crack, crack.
Right.
It can get really scary when you start to hear those tree limbs go. And if you live in Virginia, you need to be prepared to have power loss, because you're going to be a state that really struggles to keep power.
Yeah, you want to be able to stay home and stay warm, because we do have also a lot of hills here, a lot of trees, we know. And so being such a wooded area, you hear that pop, pop, pop. We start off with the cold air in place, we go to the snow, and then boom, here comes that warm nose, the nose of warm air rather, changes things over.
Ice right on top of it.
Man, that is just tough. And then the cold air behind that and some of the winds behind that, a big concern. DC, you talked about DC earlier as well, and it's interesting. DC is one of those spots, again, if you get just enough of the nose in there, that cuts back on the snowfall totals, but be prepared. 8 inches to 12 inches, just be ready for that. It's the ice, I think, that's the big part of the story.
And the reason why there's such a big gap for DC is because there are questions to how much sleet and ice is going to mix in. The more of that, the lower the overall storm total is, because it compresses the snowpack. So we start as snow, we cross over that potential of sleet and ice. If we get 12 inches of snow in DC, we haven't really recorded more of that than for a whole season since like 2017, 2018. So we're going to outdo what we've seen for season totals. It's like DC.
Of course, with this big storm, we have team coverage of all this massive storm throughout the week, and extended coverage is that into next week. Our team is going to be stretched out from Dallas clear over to Boston. There's a look at the map. We've got you covered. Stay with us as we continue to watch this storm and bring you the very latest. Fox Weather First. We'll be right back.
This company is going viral for its new process that gives you permanent teeth in just 24 hours. If you're missing 5 or more teeth, Nuvia Dental Implant Center has a life-changing solution. No dentures, no temps, no partials, and no waiting months for your finals. They're changing lives with next-day smiles that look, function, and feel real. You walk in and walk out the next day with permanent teeth made with the market's strongest material. People are calling it a new life, and it's easy to see why. Thousands and thousands were eligible, and you could be too. Click the link, you never know.
We'll get into that in just a moment, but let's focus on what we're expecting for the state of Virginia. For you guys in Virginia, it's going to be a nasty combination of snow and ice, and power outages are a guarantee. If I live in Virginia, I'm being prepared to go a couple days without power. This is why. Richmond's looking at 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice. Folks, that's an insane amount of ice with a lot of weight. So we're going to have infrastructure problems. Now, a lot of you in Virginia are blessed to have underground power. That's awesome. So if you're in a town like that, you're definitely going to favor better off. But if you do have above ground power lines, the ice in Virginia is going to be a kicker. Looking at DC to Baltimore, we're a little bit north, more snow here. 8 to 12 inches of snow in DC. If we edge closer to that 12, we're looking at more snow than we have seen from one storm in a really long time.
Yeah, once it starts coming down, it's going to be that nice snow that just keeps coming. I have to see how much of that warm air moves in. Again, we'll be with you throughout, and also if things change tonight or tomorrow morning, we'll give you the updates as we go through the days ahead.
And we want to thank you for staying with us here on Fox Weather First as we really get into the big storm of the season.
If you haven't already, this is the perfect opportunity. Download the Fox Weather app, turn on the notifications. You're going to get notified for anything that's happening where you are. So you'll get up to the minute, and we're going to need it for this type of situation. We're with you for all seasons, for all America. We have more Fox Weather up right after this break.
If this is not a blizzard, I don't know what is, guys. This wind is roaring right now off of Lake Erie. The wind chill's down in the upper teens. Remember, we're in southern Louisiana.
It's a big one. This is definitely a big storm, reducing visibility.
Well, we may have to have a little bit of a race.
It is downright Arctic.
This is something we'll be watching for you, not just through the weekend, but into early next week, right here on Fox Weather. A storm you want to keep tabs on.
Let's talk about winter precipitation. You get rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. So let's talk about how each is formed. All precipitation usually begins as snow at the top of the atmosphere. As it falls on down, as long as the entire atmosphere is about 32 degrees or cooler, it will remain snow when it hits the ground. Sleet happens when the snowflakes melt, turns into a raindrop, and then refreezes with a very cold atmosphere at the bottom layer. Freezing rain, it's a little bit different. We've got warm air on top of a very shallow layer of cold air. That rain falls through that shallow cold layer as it hits the ground as liquid, but then freezes on contact. If the entire column of air is above freezing from the surface all the way to the top of the troposphere, well, that's just plain old rain. Small temperature changes in the profile of the air can lead to huge differences in what type of precipitation you see. We're your Winter Storm HQ, Fox Weather, for all seasons, for all America.
From morning routines to weekend sidelines. When the temperature drops, bring the heat with Hot Hands, America's favorite warmer. Fast-acting, long-lasting warmth. Trusted coast to coast. Hot Hands, available everywhere you shop.
Guys, give me 6 seconds to give you an elevator pitch about how powerful Tesla PRDG monitoring software is. It's vendor agnostic OT.
I am stuck on Band-Aid brand because Band-Aid's stuck on me.
Turn heads in the totally redesigned Subaru Outback. Dog tested, dog approved.
William Shakespeare.
Look at me. Critics and audiences are captivated. Hamnet is pure magic.
What do you see?
Discover why it's the Golden Globe Award winner for Best Picture of the Year. Hamnet, rated PG-13, now playing in theaters everywhere.
Flav City's all-in-one smoothies. 25 grams of protein, 10 grams of collagen, functional mushrooms, and real fruit. Always fantastical flavor with real ingredients. And you know real when you taste it. Flav City.
Hello Hello and welcome to Fox Weather First. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to track our massive winter storm. I'm Britta Merwin.
Yeah, and I'm Craig Carrero. Just looking at the map, you can see all of the impacts from rain. We've got thunderstorms, ice, sleet, snow, and also dealing with lots of delays, trying to get places. It's a good weekend. You want to stay home and prep. Probably prepped already because it's a conversation we've been having with you. If you haven't, a little bit of time for some of you this morning, especially Texas.
Yeah, for folks that live in the Southern Plains, it's really your prep time. It is really starting to go away. By the time we get to this afternoon, we are in it. In fact, this morning in Dallas, we are waking up to rain with temperatures in the 50s. We'll check in with our Bane Frony in a little bit, but man, we will see conditions just deteriorate across the Lone Star State pretty quickly.
Yeah, no kidding. Just look at the video too. A lot of these people have been getting ready, and we are helping you get ready as well. We do want to talk about, boy, we are just littered, if you will, with watches, warnings. Ice storm warning sticks out on the map. It's that deep purple for portions of northern Alabama, portions of northeastern Georgia. Then you look at the winter storm warnings extending from New Mexico clear over to the eastern seaboard, where we have winter storm watches, but those will become warnings. It's just a matter of time. But where we have the warnings right now, this is the time. We're getting right into it right this afternoon.
Let's talk about snow first.
Yeah.
For folks that live in the Southern Plains, I-40 is a great divider. You're going to see some snow south of I-40, but the accumulating snow, the historic amount of snow, that's going to be north of Interstate 40. By the time we wake up in Oklahoma City tomorrow morning, we're going to have several inches of snow already accumulating. For the Southern Plains, it's important to note what type of snow we're talking about. The farther south you live, you're talking about a little more moisture and sleet mixing in, but up to the north, we're going to have that powdery snow. Be very careful with removing the snow. Give your body a lot of breaks. And if you live, south of I-40, know that you're getting a combination of nastiness. You're going to have the sleet mixing in and also the ice accretion. The ice accretion, a huge concern for folks that live in Mississippi, northern Louisiana, and East Texas.
Yeah, having said that, there's cold air behind this, so a lot of this is going to be a problem for several days to go. Here's the future radar and temperatures. Notice, Texas, you are dealing with rain this morning. This afternoon and to the evening hours, the cold air continues to dive in from the north and northeast. Now we are starting to see the switch over. We're starting to see things freeze over on the interstates, on the roads, in homes, or at neighborhoods rather. Saturday morning becomes a little more widespread. We pause here, Britta, because there's a little bit of a dry spot by the afternoon, a lull, if you will, between these waves of energy. And then by the evening hours, it picks up again. So please don't let your guard down Saturday at 12 o'clock, places like Texas to Little Rock and OKC, because it does pick up during the afternoon once more.
All the precip finishes up on Sunday, but the issues are still there because of how cold it is going to be. By Sunday evening, -1 in Oklahoma City, 11 degrees in Dallas, 25 in Houston. We're going to have a prolonged amount of time Sunday evening through about Tuesday afternoon where we are below freezing. The roads will not be passable. Very important to hunker down. So even on Monday, I would say Monday is a stay home day. We do have our own Fox Weather meteorologist Bane Frony in Dallas. That's an overhead look. Again, waking up in the 50s with rain and some fog, and things are about to fall apart.
Yeah, northeast winds are already picking up. That'll bring some of the colder air in. Bane, good morning. Checking in with you this morning because preps have started. Hearing from local officials, what are you seeing when you were out and about yesterday and leading up to today?
What, you guys, honestly, the past few days, we've already seen folks that are getting obviously out to the grocery stores, trying to get all of that supplies, ready to hunker down for the weekend. But on top of this, too, when I was out on Wednesday, coming to my hotel from the airport, already starting to see some of those treatments going on the roadways, getting the salt, the brine down. Folks here are prepared. They're ready for this, but they're also hoping for the best when it comes to everything that's going to be on the way. I mean, already, right now, we have the lighter rain, but temperature-wise, we are in the low 50s, which is crazy to think about because in about 24 hours, we're going to be in the low 20s. It's a 30-degree difference from what we're feeling right now. So as we move throughout the rest of this afternoon, we'll start to see those temperatures falling a little bit, but it's really going to be late tonight, tomorrow morning, where we start to see those wintry impacts. So this afternoon, we're going to start off with that lighter rain, and then rain will eventually turn into freezing rain, sleet, and even some snow into those more northern areas of Texas and up towards Oklahoma. But for us here in Dallas-Fort Worth area, we'll probably end up seeing that transition late tonight, a little bit farther to the northern parts of Texas, maybe closer to around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock tonight, is where you can start to see that wintry mix starting to move on in. But for us here, we'll start off with that freezing rain. Could potentially see that moving into sleet as we move throughout the day on Saturday. Now, when we talk about the freezing rain and the sleet, basically that big difference in what we end up seeing is all about the cold air and how much cold air is aloft. So as obviously with this setup, we do have very cold air at the surface as it starts to dive farther south, but aloft is that warmer air. So we mostly have rain falling when we go into the overnight hours, but then it hits the surface, which is very, and in freeze on impact. That's the freezing rain. But as we continue to see those cold temperatures sticking around, we may get lucky and possibly see that colder air kind of rising into the atmosphere. So we have a larger pocket of colder air, hence giving the rain a little bit more time to freeze before hitting impact on the ground. And that's where we can end up seeing more of that sleet. So we're going to have a little bit of that mix in the Dallas area and a big portion of the northern parts of Texas. But it is going to be mostly that ice impact that we are worried about here. It's that 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of ice that could accumulate on the roads, on power lines. Obviously, roadways are going to be closed down here in Texas, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where we have a major city. And also, I mean, lots of folks living in this area. They're going to have those highways shut down. I-20 specifically is going to be a dangerous roadway to be on. Hence why officials are asking folks to stay inside, to stay out of the cold, to stay off the roads. Because even as this system starts to move through on Saturday and is pretty much out of Texas area by Sunday, the cold air, it sticks around. It's going to be around for a while. And our temperatures, they're going to fall to the single digits here potentially on Sunday with wind chills in the negatives, -5, -10. Those winds really start to pick up on Sunday, which is also going to be dangerous because of all of the ice that could potentially accumulate onto our power lines. Just a little bit of that blowing wind could cause some serious problems and some of those power outages as well. So folks here are prepared for this. I've been saying it over and over again this morning, but prepared for the worst, hoping for the best. I mean, we already saw with all of those shells being emptied out already days in advance. People are planning on staying home, staying off the roads, and that's, of course, what officials are pushing for as well, you guys. I'll send it back to you.
Yeah, and Bane, before we let you go, we really should talk about the prolonged amount of cold. We're talking about temperatures being below freezing until about Tuesday afternoon, but then Tuesday night into Wednesday, we actually have another freeze that night. So even Wednesday morning, we could be dealing with icy roads. So I think that the big thing here is keeping people off the roads as long as we can.
Right, exactly. I mean, a great point too, Britta, because I think once everything is all said and done, the precipitation stops, we stop seeing the rain, the wintry mix, the sleet. Folks may think that they are in the clear, when that is definitely not the case. And it's going to take a while to actually be able to treat those roadways too, Britta.
Yeah, and of course, in a place like Dallas, and this goes for, Austin and Houston as well. Obviously, we have a shorter amount of time where we're dealing with freezing temperatures there, but it's flyovers. Those flyovers, they just shut them down. And so if you think that you're going to be able to travel on, Tuesday, you're going to get to one of these interchanges and you're going to notice, okay, that's not an option for me. So you need to actually take out a physical map. If you're one of those people that works in the hospitals that actually has to get to work, take out a map and know how to get from your house to your essential place of work without using flyover. It's a little more complicated. Many of us had to do this in 2021. I remember that was actually the first time in Houston that I actually learned how to get to work without using a flyover, because even though the precipitation moves out, we still have ice that builds up on the flyovers and they're not accessible.
They're scary to drive on a sunny day.
Yeah. Bane, what are some of the preps that you're doing as a team ahead of this?
Well, Britta, before we even got here, we had packed our bags ready to go in order to have obviously all the warm clothing that we need, but also bringing supplies from home. I mean, we were prepared that a lot of these grocery stores, these stores in general, were going to be on low supply. So bringing our own gear and everything that we needed in our luggage, first of all, and bringing that over here. So we're prepared for what's to come. I think the number one thing, though, is too, for folks at home or that are maybe watching this that are in the Dallas area or in Texas, remember, hydrating is important too, because of course with these cold temperatures, you can dehydrate very, very quickly. So being able to have a good water source is also so important. So we've been been stocking up on water bottles. That has been the main thing for us too.
Yeah, you know, a good tip there, and something that I've used as a Texan before, and I'm sure you have too, Bane. You lived in Waco. You know what? You don't have to have the fancy bottled water. Take a Ziploc bag, water's on right now, fill up that water, freeze it. It freezes nice and flat, and then you can melt it later. That's a great way to get drinking water.
Yeah, love that.
Bane, thank you so much for the update out of Dallas. We'll be checking in with you throughout the day. Enjoy being in the 50s. It's probably the warmest you're going to feel in this whole stretch.
They're really trying to tell people, look, this is coming for sure. It may move around a little bit and hit some places that we're not talking about. Some of our worst winter storms have been when we've had ice and freezing rain, and you get down power lines, or either you can even get just a quarter of an inch of ice on the roads, and it creates just havoc everywhere. We're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
That was Georgia Governor Brian Kemp on Weather Command just yesterday, right ahead of this storm that we've been watching. Huge impacts across a good chunk of the country. Georgia issuing a state of emergency, and crews have been deployed all over. And you heard him say it can change depending on where you are. Now, Georgia, we're seeing the increased opportunity for icing. Northeastern Georgia has that ice storm warning that we've got. And when you read the discussion out of Peachtree City, one of the first bulletins, is the high impact ice storm is anticipated across North Georgia this weekend, prompting that ice storm warning. Here's a look at the graphics to talk about it. Because behind us, we've got these dangerous cold temperatures Monday, potentially all the way through Thursday. Sunday morning, look at these numbers, into the 20s, very cold there. Not only that, southern parts of the state, guess what? Different story. You're going to be talking about the potential for some severe storms Sunday. So this part through the Texas, Florida Panhandle, rather, showers and thunderstorms. The northern side, where the cold air is in place, we're talking ice traveling across the state. Obviously, like all other states, not a good idea. What's happening across the northern portion of the state? Cold air damming. All that cold air from the high to the north, wrapping around that high pressure, banking up against the Appalachians, and boom, you are set for the moisture to come in, tap into the cold air that's in place, and then you will see a mixing. You can see some freezing rain, some ice. And Georgia, by the way, if you've never been to North Georgia, Atlanta, all the way to Stone Mountain, and north, very hilly and very wooded. And you think about some of these valleys, they hold on to the cold air even longer in some cases. Having said that, Britta, we're talking about ice, potentially with the chance for some of these ice accretions. How much is added up onto power lines, onto trees? It's significant. Half an inch to maybe an inch in some cases. Then you throw the wind on top of that. It's not going to take much. It's not like sleet where it just bounces. This actually accumulates on the on everything from the trees and the power lines. We'll continue to watch this. We watch as the storm continues to cover a good chunk of the country. Coming up, we're going to hone in on what we are expecting for the Northeast. So many people watching this forecast all across the country. Northeast, stand by. We've got your forecast coming up right after the break. This is Fox for the First. We'll be right back.
Congrats! You're everyone's no, except ours. Get started with self today.
Who are you looking for?
William Shakespeare.
He's got more inside of him than any man I've ever met.
Hamnet, rated PG-13, now playing in theaters everywhere.
Turn heads in the totally redesigned Subaru Outback. Dog tested, dog approved.
Well-being isn't about big goals. It's about the small, conscious choices we make each day to nourish and care for ourselves, our loved ones, and the earth around us. Made with certified clean, high-quality ingredients, delicious and organic macro bars make it easier than ever to honor your intentions. Trust what you eat, love how you feel. Go macro.
The storm, and by tomorrow morning, a lot of folks in Oklahoma will wake up to 6 inches of snow, and it will still be snowing.
Man, we haven't had a storm that's this expansive in coverage in quite some time. And when you look at just at this map and you look at the winter weather alerts, I mean, they extend all the way to the northeast, but you've got what sticks out as the winter storm warning from New Mexico to the northeast, but also the ice storm warning. Talking about that for northern Alabama and northeastern Georgia, where the opposite side of Peachtree City in Georgia talking about, hey, this is going to be the first wording out of them is how impactful it's going to be. Having said that, Britta, we got, especially along I-40. That's
a good divider line.
I was going to say, that's like it's the way it's set up, really good divider line as far as who sees heavier snow.
Changes a little bit once you go into the Tennessee Valley, but for the plains, if you're north of I-40, you're snow. If you're south of I-40, you get a nasty mix of everything, and that nasty mix is going to lead to ice and sleet. Dallas is probably going to be a combination of sleet, snow, a little bit of ice. Once you go into East Texas, Louisiana, a lot of ice. And the ice accumulations in these rural locations in western Mississippi, they really concern me. I think we are going to see over an inch of ice in western Mississippi, which means that we'll be without power and roads will not be passable, so you will be cut off for a prolonged amount of time. Now, the ice and snow accumulation will bring down tree branches. We just talked about that high potential of a long duration power outage for parts of Mississippi. You guys won't be the only ones. And you got to be prepared. And trying to prepare meals in these conditions, it really starts to get tricky.
Yeah, founder of the Survival Mom blog, Lisa Bedford, joins us now to teach us and talk about some tips for preparing in the dark.
You're going to make it easy, Lisa.
Yeah,
you are the woman we need right now.
Thank you. I love that you're going to do a display. And why don't we talk while you do this display? Thank you for doing this. First of all, how easy is it to learn how to cook without power?
You know, I start at the easiest angle, which is to stock up on foods that don't require cooking. Because when the kids are home, everyone's bored. You're going to want to start eating because you can't go anywhere. And so if you already have a supply of foods that are ready to go, so you don't have to worry about the off-grid eating. And so I have some examples here of that. But I think that is where you want to start. So I have just here, I have some protein bars, I have protein powders, some snacks, but fruit. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, you don't have to overthink it, but fruit and tortillas, bread with a few sandwich makings. I will say that when the power goes out, you want to open that refrigerator once, maybe twice, because every time you open it, it's going to let the cold out. So if you have an ice chest, now would be a really good time to pull out that ice chest from the garage or wherever you have it stored and put a few bottles of frozen water in. And that is much easier to handle than a bag of ice that starts melting. And then when the power goes out, one trip to the fridge, take out everything you think you might want, that you and the kids might want, whether it's juice or fruit, a bag of salad mix, deli meats, whatever, and put it in that ice chest. That way, even if you have little kids and you have to duct tape the refrigerator door closed, you'll have your own little area there of foods that are ready to go and they're kept cold. But the trick is to buy the foods that don't need cooking and heating and consume those first, and then move on to some of the other options I'm going to show you.
Now, if we are going to be cooking, what's the best way to cook without power?
Yeah. There are a couple of two categories. One is what is safe indoors. You've already mentioned the possibility of carbon monoxide, an open flame, heating, cooking off-grid cooking strategy is not a good idea. It's not safe. It's not recommended by manufacturers. So here I have what my choice is. And the foods that you see over here, the samples I brought, I also bought a few items that say just add water. So that hot water has to come from somewhere, and I highly recommend a power bank. I'm going to move my little hot logic a bit. But with the power bank, you can not only power up lighting, you can power up the electronics. If the kids are getting bored and you need the iPad or something, you can use it for that purpose. But for heating up water for any of these just add hot water meals or snacks, oatmeal, you have an electric kettle. I would highly recommend this. This is a large quantity one. It goes up to, 10, 12 cups. You don't need anything that big, but with a power bank, sometimes called a power station, you'll be able to power up this as well as something like a blender or an electric skillet, a rice cooker, an Instant Pot even. And that is my choice because no fumes. It's going to run silently, and it's portable. Go from room to room as you need it during the day. This one, and I can throw out a few brand recommendations. This one has portals for solar panels. So if I needed to, my power is diminished, I need to set it outside in the brightest sun possible, then I can recharge it. Otherwise, I just keep it charged using my electric outlet.
Sounds like a great tool.
One other option I love?
Go ahead.
Yes, it is. Well, let me show you this, and then if you have questions or comments about that, power bank, sometimes called a power station. And funny enough, I think it's maybe a marketing gimmick, but if you add solar panels, it suddenly becomes a solar generator. So you can look for all three of those terms as you're shopping around. You can probably pick one up today at maybe a Costco or a home improvement store. This little thing here is called a Hot Logic. It is the veteran of a number of road trips in my family. Hot Logic, they're very inexpensive, and it acts as a portable slow cooker. And you can plug this into a power bank. It doesn't require a lot of power. I have cooked pasta already in here. That's why I have my jar of marinara. Throw in a few meatballs, frozen is fine. Set it in here.
Yeah, I love that.
Units.
Lisa, this is great. Yeah, thank you so much. Real quick, before we let you go, we have just a couple seconds. What's your blog? So we can find you.
TheSurvivalMom.com. Yep, TheSurvivalMom.com with lots and lots of off-grid cooking information.
Go check it out. Lisa Bedford, a mom here to survive. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yes, you're welcome.
Let's talk about the Southeast, because, man, they're going to be getting a slice of this as well. From Mississippi to the Carolinas, all on alert for potential outages. We're talking about snow, ice, even a mixture they're moving through tomorrow morning. The governor of Alabama is urging people in her state to be prepared for what's to come.
In Alabama, we are no strangers to Mother Nature. However, when it comes to winter weather, we are not as familiar. For those reasons, I have issued a state of emergency for potentially impacted counties. I have also directed certain state agencies to position resources so we can prepare and respond effectively. Y'all stay safe, stay warm, and stay weather aware.
Good messaging out there. And by the end of the weekend, the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic dealing with it. But in the Southeast, let's start there, because we do have the chance for ice, freezing rain, sleet as well, and also thunderstorms with the energy to the south. Yeah.
Some of these southern, forecast discussions from the Weather Service are mentioning thunder snow.
Yeah, thunder snow is a big part of that. And whenever you get that, Brito, you get some intense snowfall rates when that happens.
And you can get thunder sleet.
Man.
We're in for everything across the south. Look at those temperatures, though, in Birmingham, 19 degrees. We have a lot of warm moist air that's going to ride over this Arctic air, and that's going to create the ice situation. So everyone south of I-40, this is not, going to be a pure snow event for you. You're going to have sleet and ice mixing in. Roads will not be safe to travel. You notice that little tongue of snow that goes down the Appalachians? That's because that pocket of cold air kind of banking up against the mountains themselves. We do have ice storm warnings out. The ice accretion in northeast Georgia and west and north Mississippi will be prolific. We're talking about over an inch of ice accretion in those locations. We could also see some ice really accrete across Virginia. I think the I-95 corridor in Virginia will be a no-travel zone. So you need to be prepared to stay home and stay home for a long time. Well, as we work our way through Sunday and Monday, the final stop of this winter storm will be the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Folks, we're in for a huge wallop, and some areas could see one of their biggest winter storms that they have seen in a really long time. So get ready for it. You got to make sure that you are ready to respond. Some areas have seen snow. We're showing you a beautiful live look of Westminster, Mass. That's where, of course, they got ski resorts, so they've seen snow. But Philly, yeah, we haven't really seen a lot. And we haven't. I mean, the last big storm for the 95 corridor, or big Northeast cities, goes past 5 years for many spots. So winter storm watch is up. We have warnings out that really start from Pittsburgh and extend back towards the Midwest. It's just a matter of time. If you live on the 95 corridor and you're hoping that this is just going to go away, it's not. So get with it. Your prep day is going to be today and also through the beginning of tomorrow. So why do we still have questions for the Northeast in regards to how much snow we're going to see? Well, a lot of this depends on what happens today. You see these two areas of low pressure? These are two pieces of energy coming together. This is what the forecast was calling for yesterday. Let's flip to reality. It verifies very well. We can see that upper level low moving into Baja. The big dip in the jet, that northerly already on the map. So everything is setting up with ground truth right now to match what the forecast was calling for yesterday. Where do we go from here? These two pieces of energy, they will phase together. Where that happens and where that energy is shut off to, off the Atlantic coastline, determines how much snow we get across the Northeast. So again, there's a potential here where we could see over 1.5 feet of snow in some of these cities. If we get a big influence from the Atlantic, we cross over to sleet or even rain, we could see that cut down to 6 inches. You have to be prepared for both options, and you got to make sure that you check in tomorrow morning. Our weather app is free. If you don't have power, you still have that phone powered up. You have our coverage in the palm of your hand. We're here for you and your family. There's still a lot more to discuss when it comes to this storm. So coming up, we're right back to it. Let's talk about the ice, how much ice we are going to see, and how long it is going to be cold, because bitter cold air, a big part of this scenario. Stay with us here on Fox Weather. We'll be right back.
Hey, look. Jeez, horse.
From cups to espresso machines, get everything you need without the stress. That's the Webster way.
Come around with your hands in your pockets, and baby, I've been thinking too much. But hearts don't
Turn heads in the totally redesigned Subaru Outback. Dog tested, dog approved.
Tough jobs demand even tougher power tools. The Hercules 20-volt brushless platform from Harbor Freight is rigorously tested by professionals to make sure your tools work as hard as you do. Hercules combines power, durability, versatility, and value with the universal 20-volt battery system that powers every tool. Discover why so many Milwaukee and DeWalt users are making the switch to Hercules. Hercules, as good as the best for a whole lot less. Only at Harbor Freight.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Fox Weather First. I'm Britta Merwin along with Craig Herrera this morning. We have a massive winter storm that is unleashing its wrath across the country. Part of this is really coming down to how cold the air is. I mean, many of you are probably feeling it this morning. Let's go ahead and take you outside. That's St. Paul, Minnesota. We got Dallas, Fort Worth. Dallas, you're still waiting for the cold air. If you want to enjoy temperatures in the 50s, which is so funny because in Dallas, 50s would be like your run-of-the-mill winter day. I mean, for an afternoon high. This is the warmest you're going to be for probably a week. This Arctic air is not only starting to move into our country, but we have a reestablishing shot of it behind this winter storm that will really hold it in place for a long amount of time. So as we take a look at this whole setup, Today, the coldest temperatures are really up across the northern tier. We have cold weather warnings, an extreme cold weather warning, and in fact, that extends all the way south of I-80 in Iowa. So that's for feel like temperatures as cold as negative 55. I mean, you can't even go outside. I mean, you literally can go out, let your dog out, and come right back in. Right now in Grand Marnier, Minnesota, we have a feel like temperature of negative 62. These are dramatically low wind chill factors. So again, it's not just the cold, it's the cold and the wind. We're starting to see that cold air get into Ohio. It will get all the way into Pennsylvania and New York State before this winter storm arrives. That's why we're expecting big snow totals. In fact, some of our biggest snow totals from this winter storm will be in the Northeast as long as things pan out the way it looks right now. And it's because of this cold air. Right now, we have feel like temperatures tomorrow morning that will be dramatically low. In fact, we'll be waking up in the single digits in Boston tomorrow ahead of the big snowstorm on the way. On the southern plains, the first stop of this potent winter storm. Let's break down city by city what we are going to experience. I want to kick things off with the state of Arkansas. Arkansas, you guys are in for just a real brutal experience because it's a combination of snow and ice. And with the amount of ice that we're talking about, we could certainly see infrastructure problems that could lead to significant power loss. 1 to 3 inches of snow for Little Rock, so north of Interstate 40, especially northwest Arkansas. You're going to tap into that colder air throughout the vertical column of the air, and that means that you're going to have some bigger snow totals. 8 to 12 for a place like Fayetteville. Marshall could see maybe up to 10, 12 inches of snow. We will have ice, but notice that the significant ice is really from Little Rock pushing down to the Tennessee border. We could see over a ½ inch of ice across parts of Pine Bluff and certainly extending into Mississippi. I mean, the I-55 corridor of Mississippi is probably going to be one of the hardest hit spots when it comes to ice. Let's move on to Oklahoma. Oklahoma, you guys really start to see your weather deteriorate as we work our way through tonight. North of I-40 in the state of Oklahoma, by tomorrow morning, you will wake up to 2 to 6 inches of snow. We're talking about snow rates north of Oklahoma City hitting 1 inch of snow per hour. I mean, that's a thud of snow.
Yeah, it is. And look at Stillwater, north of Oklahoma City, north. And you're talking about up to 12 inches of fresh snow there. To the south there, the concern, of course, is going to be the ice, not only for Oklahoma City, but all cities along the I-40 corridor and places south of there.
I-40
so many people travel.
is a very good visual breakdown for folks that live in the southern plains. If you're south of I-40, be very concerned about ice. If you're north of I-40, you're going to have a big flavor of heavy snow.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, after these storms move through the southern plains, they continue to move to the east, and we're talking about some of these southern cities and what they will be dealing with, especially as we go through the weekend and into the week ahead. So having said that, I want to bring this graphic up because I know that we were talking about how cold it's going to be, and Britta was just talking about places like Little Rock. I just want to start off with this. When the storm passes and we're talking about freezing temperature, Little Rock could be dealing with about 102 hours where we are in the 5 days where we're sitting below freezing. Dallas, 88 hours below that freezing mark. Jackson, Mississippi, 58 hours. Over to Atlanta, 39 hours below the freezing point. Why that's important, of course, as you know, not only is it cold, but how many of you may lose power? A lot of homes across the south and southeast aren't really insulated like they are to the north. So having said that, you've got to maybe check in with the neighbors. Hey, you know what? It's going to be cool. Can we hang out? Can I come over? Because when you talk about some of these homes, mobile homes, modular homes, they're not quite as insulated quite as well.
No, also you want to think about basic utilities. Obviously, power, that is going to be something that unfolds that will be a problem. For access to water, it is a very good idea to drip your faucets if you live across the south. The key is to know, are you on city water and a sewer line? If you have a septic system, don't drip your faucets. It's actually too much pressure on your septic system and you could actually have more problems. So a lot of these tips, you have to know what kind of home you live in. If you are a new build that is hooked up to the city, dripping the water in your faucets, that can certainly keep the water flowing so you can have access to water throughout the storm. If for some reason your pipes freeze, you don't have water coming out, turn off the faucets because you're going to do problems to your pipes because of that. And you can always melt the snow in your backyard.
Yeah.
You know, better option than having nothing.
Yeah, and just being prepared for, like we said, several hours of this.
Ice certainly is a tough scenario, and you've seen a lot of forecast here for that. In any extreme weather, of course, safety is always the number one priority, both for the public, but also for those utility crews doing everything they can to get that power restored as quickly as possible. But these are some of the toughest scenarios, certainly with that combination of weather.
Washington, D.C. is gearing up for what will likely be its biggest snowstorm in about 10 years. We got watches that cover the 95 corridor in the Northeast. We are getting ready for what could be a significant hit. There are still a lot of questions for how much snow we are going to get. We'll get into that in just a moment, but let's focus on what we're expecting for the state of Virginia. For you guys in Virginia, it's going to be a nasty combination of snow and ice, and power outages are a guarantee. If I live in a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice, folks, that's an insane amount of ice with a lot of weight. So we're going to have infrastructure problems. Now, a lot of you in Virginia are blessed to have underground power. That's awesome.
Yeah,
so if you're in a town like that, you're definitely going to favor better off. But if you do have above ground power lines, the ice in Virginia is going to be a kicker. Looking at D.C. to Baltimore, we're a little bit farther up to the north. More snow here. 8 to 12 inches of snow in D.C. If we edge closer to that 12, we're looking at more snow than we have seen from one storm in a really long time.
Yeah, once it starts coming down, it's going to be that nice snow that just keeps coming. I have to see how much of that warm air moves in. Again, we'll be with you throughout, and also if things change tonight or tomorrow morning, we'll give you the updates as we go through the days ahead.
And we want to thank you for staying with us here on Fox Weather First as we really get into the big storm of the season.
If you haven't already, this is the perfect opportunity. Download the Fox Weather app, turn on the notifications. You're going to get notified for anything that's happening where you are. So you'll get up to the minute, and we're going to need it for this type of situation. We're with you for all seasons, for all America. We have more Fox Weather up right after this break.
If this is not a blizzard, I don't know what is, guys. This wind is roaring right now off of Lake Erie. The wind chill's down in the upper teens. Remember, we're in southern Louisiana.
It's a big one. This is definitely a big storm. The wind reducing visibility.
Well, we may have to have a little bit of a race.
It is downright Arctic.
This is something we'll be watching for you, not just through the weekend, but into early next week, right here on Fox Weather. A storm you want to keep tabs on.
Let's talk about winter precipitation. You get rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow. So let's talk about how each is formed. All precipitation usually begins as snow at the top of the atmosphere. As it falls on down, as long as the entire atmosphere is about 32 degrees or cooler, it will remain snow when it hits the ground. Sleet happens when the snowflakes melt, turns into a raindrop, and then refreezes with a very cold atmosphere at the bottom layer. Freezing rain, it's a little bit different. We've got warm air on top of a very shallow layer of cold air. That rain falls through that shallow cold layer as it hits the ground as liquid, but then freezes on contact. If the entire column of air is above freezing from the surface all the way to the top of the troposphere, well, that's just plain old rain. Small temperature changes in the profile of the air can lead to huge differences in what type of precipitation you see. We're your Winter Storm HQ, Fox Weather, for all seasons, for all America.
parts of Oklahoma. Some localized higher amounts, so that could be near record snowfall amounts. And for many cities, this could be the worst snowstorm that we are expecting in more than a decade. So let's walk again through this future radar model. And Bain showed us a closer look at Dallas, but we'll zoom out for a wide picture. So as of this morning, some showers across Texas, and it's such surges down to the south through the day. This is when things start to get interesting. This is when travel is going to start to be tricky. So while you still have some of the rain across parts of the south this morning, you want to do your final preparations. So we have that ice that mixes in through this evening and continuing overnight. You can see more of this colder air is going to surge down to the south through tomorrow morning. Some big impacts in terms of that mixed precipitation. We're having some snow that's falling for parts of northern Texas as this precipitation shield continues to expand farther off to the east. And Stephen, I think some of the biggest impacts are going to be felt as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday morning. That's when I think we'll start to see more of that colder air surge down to the south. And this is when we can also pick up on some of the most intense precipitation rates in terms of snowfall for this area.
I think that's when that surface low really begins to crank and it moves out of Texas and it pushes into Arkansas and then Tennessee. It's interesting. We're looking at St. Louis this morning, a similar sunrise that we had in Dallas yesterday. There will be two notable waves of precipitation. We got that first push that you were highlighting. This second push, though, is where we could along the I-44 corridor. I will say, from a snow perspective, the I-44 corridor in Missouri down into Oklahoma appears to be where we could have that sweet spot for the highest amount of snow. We'll see, there might be some fluctuations, but still so cold when we look at the snow side of this.
Oklahoma City, one of those spots calling for anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow. And the story does continue as we go through the rest of the weekend as that colder air continues to dominate the forecast. And any snow or ice that you do get, it's just really not going anywhere.
Yeah, not going to move. I hate to say it, but looking at next week's forecast, temperatures are going to remain below average as far as
for most of the week, right?
Yeah, it's going to be very cold.
In the ice forecast, looking at this, some spots that stick out to me, Little Rock and Shreveport are where we could pick up anywhere from roughly around half an inch of ice, which could be crippling at that with power outages widespread.
That's what we can't ignore, because I know the focus of getting where that snow is going to be this southern side where the temperatures are going to warm. They will be fluctuating. And I think with the two waves of precipitation, we're going to have a different source of this slightly warmer air. So what we get with this first batch might be a little different than the second batch. It's a prolonged event. So with the lull that we're forecasting for that Saturday, don't think that the storm's over, because there will be another push, and that too will have some warmer air to work with.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Going to be big totals, though. We've actually seen, Melanie, we're going to talk about it more coming up in a little bit, the southeast. Ice storm warnings this morning have expanded. They now include a few parishes in Louisiana, as well as parts of Tennessee. Parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia also have ice storm warnings for this weekend. Up next, we time out this high-impact winter storm as it expands in the southeast. Also ahead on Weather Command, we're talking with the Tennessee Valley Authority. The TVA is the nation's largest public power provider, and they're gearing up for a lot of ice. Later this morning, flying into the storm, the hurricane hunters have flown recon missions to get more accurate data for this developing storm. It's going to be an interesting interview. The flight director of NOAA's aircraft operations will be joining us as well. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, we'll have the mayor of Oxford, Mississippi. An ice storm warning is in effect for his city. So we're going to talk how the city's preparing for this dangerous storm for the weekend. We'll be right back.
For the ones working to make every day a little sweeter, there's Granger, for the ones who get it done.
You've got ideas, a new project, a renovation that's been waiting. Bauer gives you the power to build, fix, and upgrade at prices that deliver more for your dollar. Bauer, heavy duty guaranteed.
low pressure that is going to continue to amplify. So we look at our snowfall forecast for the Northeast. Here's our latest thinking and the Sunday to Monday timeframe. The greatest snow has been trending farther north. 10 plus states could receive over a foot of snow or more, but we're also watching for that potential of that warm nose. Where is the warmer air going to move on in? Because that could touch into some of those snowfall accumulations and do impact it. But we have all the ingredients for a major snowstorm. We have that plume of moisture working out of the southwest, as well as a very cold air mass in place. As we look at our winter weather alerts, you can see winter storm warnings already at play across the Ohio River Valley. We can't forget about that. That's where we're expecting anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow. And winter storm watches expand all the way to the coast. And this is just more of a timing thing. Still all the ingredients there for some of those cities along the I-95 corridor to pick up more than a foot of snow. Let's jump right in and overnight into tomorrow. Actually, what's going to happen is this Arctic front moves on in, and that's going to allow colder air to work on in. Tomorrow morning, we will be talking about temperatures that are near zero, even into the single digits. Bitter cold setting up. Here's when that snow shield starts to arrive, Stephen. By tomorrow night, you can see that first initial thump of snow across areas like Richmond, stretching northeast to Philadelphia. And here's where things start to get tricky as we go overnight Saturday into Monday. You can see the pink, so some of that warm air starting to work on in, switching everything over to ice. And this is when things could really take a turn for the worse.
And I know you've been watching that coastal low pretty carefully too, because that thing makes all the difference. It doesn't matter if it's 19, if it's 25 degrees, if it's 31 degrees at the surface. Those coastal lows
about the position.
Bring in warmer air.
Yes. And as we continue with our model here, you'll start to see more of that precipitation shield in terms of the ice is going to expand farther northward. So at this point, this is when it could cut into some of our snow totals, but some of these areas could pick up on significant icing.
I know, we're looking at maybe sometime late Sunday into Monday if temperatures are, what does that say in New York City? Yeah, 29 degrees, 30 in Philadelphia. A possibility that we will see a changeover to all sleet. Maybe a little bit of freezing rain. Looks to be more of a sleet sounding this morning. Boston, though, is interesting. Boston's going to be close to where maybe that cold air wins out during this event.
Exactly, and that's where we're forecasting maybe some of the highest snow totals across the 95 corridor. The heaviest snowfall rates are really going to happen Sunday night and into Monday for the Boston area for parts of the Northeast.
Watch as this storm evolves into New England too. Well, Melanie, as we wait for the storm to arrive in the Northeast, in the Lone Star State, TxDOT getting ready for this winter storm. Crews are mainly targeting bridges and other elevated roads. This is out of Austin, Travis County, which often freezes before the other roads, right? Those elevated surfaces. Texas is up first when we look at states that are going to feel the impact, really New Mexico, Colorado. Hey, the Southern Rockies are getting in on some snow. That's much needed too. We're going to time out these first flakes. Hopefully there's a few flakes in Texas, just hours away. We'll be right back.
Scammers demand payment with gift cards. Don't share codes or personal details.
Well. So these trends, very important to keep track of. That does mean that we're going to have a big influence when it comes to ice. The farther that north north push is, the more influence we have of that moisture and that warmth from the Gulf. So let's isolate some of these areas. Arkansas as a state is going to be a real tough hit state because they get dished everything. Northwest Arkansas, a lot of hills there. You're going to have a powerful, potent thud of snow. We could pick up 8 to 12 inches of snow across Northwest Arkansas. At the same time, the state is going to have to respond to ice in their southerly counties, and those are going to be areas where power outages are going to be really likely. The natural state is called that for a reason. I mean, we have beautiful tree coverage here, we have national parks, and unfortunately, the trees are going to snap underneath that threat of ice. So this is definitely a state where we're looking at multiple threats, and because of that, the state is going to have to respond to multiple different types of threats, helping out their local, communities here. Pine Bluff, Little Rock down to Pine Bluff, that's where we get into the ice, maybe a quarter to a half an inch. That's significant. That is enough where we'll have widespread power outages. Where we lose power, you'll be without power for days. That is just the brutal reality. Let's move up further into our snow belt. So Oklahoma, you go up on Interstate 44, you're getting into the thick of the heaviest snow. We will have multiple areas, 8 to 12 inches, isolated spots, I would say 12 to 14, especially as you move up towards the I-35 corridor. That still looks to be the hot spot. Moving up towards Stillwater, we'll have some higher snow totals. I-40 is a great cutoff for the state of Oklahoma. If you're south of I-40, get ready for more of an ice element. North of I-40, get ready for a lot of snow. Let's move on to East Texas, Louisiana, and southern Arkansas. Again, we will have a snow element, but these are areas where we will see a huge crossover to ice. And the ice accumulation here, especially along I-20, moving towards Mississippi, could be prolific. I mean, Stephen, I'm looking at some of those western counties, more rural locations off of I-55 in Mississippi. If we really get over an inch of ice, those are rural locations where they likely will not have passable roads because the ice will be so thick and so treacherous, and they won't have power. And when you think about that type of a setup for a more rural community, that's really scary. I mean, these big cities, it's bad enough to have power gone, but in these rural locations, you get that feeling of being cut off. So very important for folks to take those steps now. You have a little more time to prep, but I think yesterday, Ken Graham, the director of the National Weather Service, he had a great conversation with Jay Menard, and he said, be prepared to be without power for a week. And I think that's a really smart thing to do, because if you prepare like that, if you're from Mississippi, prepare as if it's a hurricane, and then you'll be in a good spot.
Not hyperbole. I mean, people who have witnessed significant ice storms, it's 10 days. I've had family who've gone 10.
You have to rebuild infrastructure. I think the scary thing, though, is keeping your family warm for that amount of time. You can secure water, go get the ice and melt it. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing if your pipes are frozen. But staying warm, find every blanket in your house. During the day, take the blankets down so you can heat up your home at night. Put a big comforter over doors and windows. It saves you that couple degrees.
Yep, any little bit will help as we'll be counting down those days. Hopefully there's not widespread power outages, but you have to prepare like there will be. All right, Britta, thank you. This winter storm is actually going to arrive in the mid-Atlantic tomorrow. So the countdown is on. Virginia's Department of Transportation, and they're already pre-treating roads. In Stanton, VDOT posting on X saying the snow signal is activated. Virginia, a major winter storm is impending and severe winter driving conditions are expected. They go on to remind folks to gather that food, make sure you have the medication and supplies, get to where you need to go before the storm. And they're encouraging people not to drive once the snow begins. We'll also be dealing with some ice through the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're breaking down the very complex forecast for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, and also still ahead, we're talking with the Tennessee Valley Authority. The TVA is the nation's largest public power provider, and they're gearing up for a lot of ice. Also later this morning, flying into the storm, the hurricane hunters have flown recon missions to get more accurate data for this evolving winter storm. And we're going to have the flight director of NOAA's aircraft operations join us live here on Weather Command. And in the 11 o'clock hour, the mayor of Oxford, Mississippi, speaking of areas that could be dealing with some significant ice, he's going to be joining us, and we'll discuss this potentially crippling ice storm for Oxford. Weather Command will be right back.
What is in the forecast? To start shopping, go to foxweatherdeals.com. Courtney Kaysen, our resident lifestyle expert, is back with another super cool, kind of futuristic product.
Oh my gosh, and they're from Minolta, which you guys know, a digital optics brand with so much respect in the category. You've probably had their products in your home for years. These are their 4K HD binoculars, and you can choose to look through the traditional way, or you can look through on the screen, which is awesome, because say right now you're looking at foliage, but when weather turns chilly, you're looking at wildlife, you can actually snap a picture of what you're viewing, and because these are 12 times the magnification, you're seeing what's 120 feet away, almost as if like crystal clarity 10 feet away, which is awesome. There's an SD card here, so you can transfer it out to your computer, which is lovely, and these just fit a lot more comfortably in the hand. They're lightweight, you can travel with them, camping, cruising, you name it, and have your memories for a lifetime stored and saved.
I love it. An LCD screen on binoculars is something that's been a long time coming, I think.
Absolutely. Our deal price today, phenomenal, $149.99, saving you 50% off.
That is a deal. Courtney, thank you so much. We appreciate that. To purchase one of these and so much more, scan the QR code on your screen or check out foxweatherdeals.com. Happy shopping.
For the ones working to make every day a little sweeter, there's Granger, for the ones who get it done.
That kind of getting to where you need to be, that's what I hope to build in the
snowfall totals and the ice totals as well. I-40 is a big player. It almost seems like everything shifted a little farther north, and that's almost like a good barrier to figure out where we're going to see the ice and snow mix. Look at Nashville, by the way. Oh, and look at this. You go to rain, and then behind that, look at the temperatures. Anything that's left over, frozen. It's going to be a mess. We've got to be ready for this.
And on the cold side, too.
Yeah.
Next week. I know it's been quite a tale. What a forecast journey for a city like Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Where it initially looked like big snows would be the concern. Now we're talking a bit of an icy situation. Hopefully it's more sleet than freezing rain.
Yeah, agreed.
We'll see. All right, Craig Herrera, appreciate it.
You got it.
Major cities in the Northeast are staring down the prospect of their biggest snowstorm in years. More than a foot of snow is now forecast across parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger spoke yesterday about road conditions in the Commonwealth. Take a listen.
Snowfall, the mix of freezing rain, sleet, and then very low temperatures will make this a difficult storm to respond to and will elongate the amount of time it will take to clear roads.
Virginia is under a state of emergency, and National Guard troops are on standby to respond to the storm. VDOT crews have been out pre-treating roads with some 10,000 pieces of equipment. The region's first flakes start Saturday afternoon as snow moves from the west into Virginia and West Virginia. Let's take a look at the overall setup with this storm. These snow totals increasing along the I-95 corridor stretching from Richmond to Boston, and it's all dependent on the strength and the position of that area of low pressure that is going to continue to amplify. So we look at our snowfall forecast for the Northeast. Here's our latest thinking in the Sunday to Monday timeframe. The greatest snow has been trending farther north. 10 plus states could receive over a foot of snow or more, but we're also watching for that potential of that warm nose. Where is the warmer air going to move on in? Because that could touch into some of those snowfall accumulations and do impact it. But we have all the ingredients for a major snowstorm. We have that plume of moisture working out of the southwest, as well as a very cold air mass in place. As we look at our winter weather alerts, you can see winter storm warnings already at play across the Ohio River Valley. We can't forget about that. That's where we're expecting anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of snow, and winter storm watches expand all the way to the coast. And this is just more of a timing thing. Still all the ingredients there for some of those cities along the I-95 corridor to pick up more than a foot of snow. Let's jump right in it overnight into tomorrow. Actually, what's going to happen is this Arctic front moves on in, and that's going to allow colder air to work on in. So tomorrow morning, we will be talking about temperatures that are near zero, even into the single digits. Bitter cold setting up. Here's when that snow shield starts to arrive, Stephen. By tomorrow night, you can see that first initial thump of snow across areas like Richmond, stretching northeast to Philadelphia. And here's where things start to get tricky as we go overnight Saturday into Monday. You can see the pink, so some of that warm air starting to work on in, switching everything over to ice. And this is when things could really take a turn for the worse.
I know, and I know you've been watching that coastal low pretty carefully too, because that thing makes all the difference. It doesn't matter if it's 19, if it's 25 degrees, if it's 31 degrees at the surface. Those
It's
coastal
all
lows
about the position.
bring in warmer air.
Yes. And as we continue with our model here, you'll start to see more of that precipitation shield in terms of the ice is going to expand farther northward. So at this point, this is when it could cut into some of our snow totals, but some of these areas could pick up on significant icing.
I know we're looking at maybe sometime late Sunday into Monday if temperatures are, what does that say in New York City? Yeah, 29 degrees, 30 in Philadelphia. A possibility that we will see a changeover to all sleet. Maybe a little bit of freezing rain. Looks to be more of a sleet sounding this morning. Boston, though, is interesting. Boston's going to be close to where maybe that cold air wins out during this event.
Exactly, and that's where we're forecasting maybe some of the highest snow totals across the 95 corridor. The heaviest snowfall rates are really going to happen Sunday night and into Monday for the Boston area for parts of the Northeast.
Watch as this storm evolves into New England too. Well, Melanie, as we wait for the storm to arrive in the Northeast, in the Lone Star State, TxDOT getting ready for this winter storm. Crews are mainly targeting bridges and other elevated roads. This is out of Austin, Travis County, which often freezes before the other roads, right? Those elevated surfaces. Texas is up first when we look at states that are going to feel the impacts, really New Mexico, Colorado. Hey, the Southern Rockies are getting in on some snow. That's much needed too. We're going to time out these first flakes. Hopefully there's a few flakes in Texas. Just hours away. We'll be right back.
Already sent you a scribe with step-by-step instructions. Do it once, share forever. Get Scribe.
For welders who demand more, Vulcan delivers. With advanced inverter technology, high-duty cycles, and precise arc control, Vulcan welders are engineered for serious performance. Complete your setup with a full range of premium accessories and consumables, all built to work as hard as you do. Vulcan, where professional power meets unbeatable value, only at Harbor Freight.
And then it's the secondary lanes. Keep in mind that in East Tennessee alone, our 24 counties, we have over 9,000 lane miles that we are responsible for in interstates and state routes. But our crews will get to all of them just as quickly as they can. And again, they'll stay on the job as long as they have to.
And let's get into the forecast a little bit. So initially this could start as some snow and then transition to a mix, maybe even a little bit of a lull in there. How does that impact what the roads are going to be like as you're transitioning with these different types of precipitation? Or does it affect what you're doing?
Yeah, we might get a little bit of everything across the state. And to be frank, we would rather get 10 inches of snow than we would a tenth or a quarter inch of ice. That's when things can get extremely dangerous. And we're looking at those transition periods where you're getting a little bit of snow, everything seems to be fine. And then after that, if you get that freezing rain, then things can get extremely dangerous for motorists. So our crews have been pre-treating these roadways. Hopefully that salt brine will do its job and keep those patches of snow and ice from forming on the roadways. But keep in mind, when those temperatures get below 16 degrees, that really affects what our supplies are able to do. So we're hopeful that the temperatures do not get that low. It does look like we are going to have some single-digit temperatures, especially Sunday going into Monday through large portions of the state, but there's only so much that we can do at that point, which is why, again, we tell folks to stay at home.
Yeah, that threshold is just so interesting there. Now, obviously, the best bet here is to stay at home, but in case of an emergency, if someone does have to get on the roads, what do you recommend?
Well, we would recommend if you do have to be on the roadways, make sure that your car is in proper working order. Make sure you've got at least a half a tank of gas. An emergency kit is always a good idea with bottled water, blankets, maybe even a spare battery for your phone in case you do need to call for help. The last thing that you want is for your car to be stranded on the side of the road when those temperatures get to that dangerous level.
Yeah, that's a good point, to make sure you have that winter kit ready to go. Now that we are fully in the middle of the winter season. Mark Nagy, thank you so much for joining us for your insight.
Thank you, Melanie.
Let's move further north. More than a foot of snow is now forecast across parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Washington, D.C.'s metro is ready for this weekend's big winter storm. De-icer trains are already spraying anti-icing fluid on the third rail to keep people moving when temperatures drop. Our nation's capital could see its heaviest snow in more than 10 years. The Mid-Atlantic's first flakes will start to fly Saturday afternoon as snow starts moving in out of the west into Virginia and West Virginia. So as we look at this morning, snow totals continue to increase along the I-95 corridor from Richmond to Boston. This is all as this area of low pressure is going to continue to strengthen and move into the coastal region. Snowfall forecast for this greatest snow is trending farther north. So we're talking about a lot of towns along the I-95 corridor that could pick up or have the potential to pick up about a foot of snow. There you see the winter weather alerts. And also through the Ohio Valley, they can pick up 8 to 12 inches. Winter storm watch closer to the coast, all a timing thing with this. And here's a look at that timing. We'll jump right into it. Talking about some of those cold temperatures, with temperatures in the single digits, just setting the stage with that Arctic air mass. Here you see the precipitation shields arriving out of the west, as I mentioned. This is as we pick this up into tomorrow. So you've got this initial thump of snow for parts of the Ohio Valley into the mid-Atlantic. And that continues to push off to the north as we get into Sunday.
As those temperatures remain stubbornly cold, we're single digits. I mean, tomorrow morning in the Northeast and New England, it's going to feel colder than we felt all season.
Right.
So you got to prepare for that. But yeah, we wait for this moisture to move in. It's crazy how an air mass like this with this moisture plume will rise the temperatures, but not to a much warmer degree. We're still talking 17 degrees as that snow starts, maybe late Saturday into Sunday in New York.
And that is going to allow the snow to be fluffy and continue to stack up. The reason being, some of these snow totals you're looking at around a foot, especially for areas of metro New York City. When the warm air works in, this could cut into our snowfall totals, especially looking at this for Long Island, but then even into that corridor of the Mid-Atlantic from Richmond, Washington, D.C. into Philly.
Yeah, snow totals might really be affected. It'll be close in DC. I know we're talking about 10 years since we've had a huge snow. If the temperatures are just too warm, that's really going to rob a lot of the snow totals. So I think it's one of those things you have to watch. One of the trends we've noticed too the last 24 hours with the 95 corridor is maybe some of that warmer air trying to sling into New York and Philly, producing a little bit more sleet than snow, which would also drop down those snow totals.
Right, and then our tension Sunday night and into Monday really turns to northern New England and the Northeast, as this period is when you could have the higher snowfall rates.
Right.
And looking at the bigger impacts in terms of snow to really start to accumulate Sunday night into the Monday timeframe.
Low pressure off the Cape that could enhance the snow even into Portland, Maine. That's why Maine has now become part of this winter storm story, where just to kick off this week, it looked real far south. Everything has moved farther to the north, and while this low is a little closer to the coast, so maybe slinging in some moisture, the 95 corridor that's not snow.
Right, especially for the Cape and the islands there. It'll be interesting to see where that really sets up, that warmer air working on it. But some parts of Massachusetts could pick up around a foot, even higher.
Yeah.
It's all about the sweet spot, the benchmark, as we like to call it, that 70-40 line. How close are those low pressures tracking to that? I was just looking at ensembles within the past half hour, and they have it awfully close. A lot of consensus that is going to be right near that sweet spot. And if you want a big snowstorm, you root for the low pressure to get closer to that.
Wild that with everything this storm's going to bring in the south, in the southeast, in the Midwest, we could have some of the highest snow totals here in the Northeast and New England. We'll see where it ultimately falls. We're also tracking this storm as it moves across the country. It all starts today in the plains with rain, and then a transition to freezing rain, sleet, and snow. It's eventually then going to shift into the southeast, where ice storm warnings are going up. Many more counties in the Carolinas and Georgia now under an ice storm threat. Fox Weather has live team coverage across the entire path of the storm for your Winter Storm HQ with extended coverage all weekend long. Download the Fox Weather app. You can stream us live. You can also track the radar on that Fox Weather app. It's all free. The storm's going to be a big one. Weather Command will be right back.
From Cubs
really help our global forecast models forecast this. The flight director of NOAA's aircraft is going to join us live on Weather Command. And the next hour, we'll have the mayor of Oxford, Mississippi, discussing how his city is bracing for a dangerous ice storm this weekend. Oxford under an ice storm warning. In addition, after having some fun in the snow and slopes, meteorologist Bob Van Dillen, he's left the ski house and he's going to be live in Roswell, Georgia, as portions of the Peach State gear up for this nasty winter storm. Bob's going to join us on Weather Command. Keep it here.
This company is going viral for its new process that gives you permanent teeth in just 24 hours. If you're missing 5 or more teeth, Nuvia Dental Implant Center has a life-changing solution. No dentures, no temps, no partials, and no waiting months for your finals. They're changing lives with next-day smiles that look, function, and feel real. You walk in and walk out the next day with permanent teeth made with the market's strongest material. People are calling it a new life, and it's easy to see why. Thousands and thousands were eligible, and you could be too. Click the link, you never know.
All the time. At that point, we made some decisions. We bought a full house Generac standby generator. I get kind of emotional when I talk about this. Obviously, having peace of mind is extremely important. When we first moved in here,
and this data is being sent out operationally to the forecasters as well as to the global models, and nearly real time. So this data is being pushed out almost instantaneously, just a couple minutes of delay.
Obviously, winter storm, much different than a hurricane. So what are the conditions like? How does that compare?
Right, so in hurricanes, we tend to get a lot more convective activity. So this means we fly through the tops of thunderstorms, which gives us a lot of turbulence due to the clouds and the upward motion due to these strong thunderstorms. When we're flying these kind of missions, we experience a lot more clear air turbulence, which is still turbulence, but it tends to catch a bit more off guard because there's not really any visual cues. It's more due to changes in the wind field that causes for some turbulence. The flights tend to be a lot clear skies, again, in a hurricane, as you suspect. A lot of big clouds. In these kind of missions, the clouds are a lot lower, but still very important.
You're going into these storms that are massive. What kind of mindset do you have to get into? What do some of these hurricane hunters, what kind of preparations do they have to take before these missions?
In terms of mindset, it's understanding the impact of our mission. This data is very important. As mentioned, winter weather forecasting is very difficult, but it also has such big impacts like ice, can knock out power, snow, especially in the regions that the storm is going to hit. It's uncommon. So just mentally preparing and understanding the importance and the scale of this flight kind of is what I think about before these flights. But also, just typical preparations as we would for hurricanes. So we look at the weather, check the turbulence, and preparation starts hours before mission. So these missions are about 4 hours for these missions in the Gulf, but we are getting ready 2 to 3 hours before.
Well, we thank you for all the work that you're doing. It definitely helps us here at Fox Weather, help to hone in on our forecast. Sophia De Solo, Flight Director for NOAA's Aircraft Operations Center, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Let's move further north, and more than a foot of snow is now forecast across parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Washington, D.C.'s metro ready for this weekend's big winter storm. De-icer trains are already spraying anti-icing fluid on the third rail to keep people moving when temperatures drop. Our nation's capital, it could see its heaviest snow in more than 10 years. And the nation's capital is not alone. There's also more cities in the mix. The Mid-Atlantic's first flakes will start Saturday afternoon as snow moves in from the west into Virginia and West Virginia. Here's a look at our last 12-inch or more snowstorm. You have to go back all the way to 2016 for Philly as well as our nation's capital, but also back to 2021, the year 2022 for Boston and New York City. Let's take a look at what we're calling for in terms of that snowfall forecast. The greatest snow continues to trend farther north with this, as 10 plus states have the potential of getting about a foot of snow or more. Of course, what we've been talking about is that warm nose nudging on in. So could there be some impacts in terms of some sleet mixing on in with that snow? And then that'll cut down into the amount of snow that we are going to accumulate. Jumping right into it with our future radar. So this is into tomorrow morning. Before we get there, temperatures are going to continue to plummet. Some of the coldest air of the season working in across the mid-Atlantic as well into the Northeast. You have this Arctic air that's rushing on in. That initial thump of snow is felt across the Ohio Valley as well as to the mid-Atlantic, where you have snow showers tomorrow afternoon into the evening.
And that cold air is going to be sinking south all the while. I think tomorrow when people wake up in the Northeast and New England, they're really going to feel this Arctic air that we've not felt so far this season. So then the thought might be, how are we even going to get snow in this environment? Well, the mid-levels are a little warmer. Got a lot of moisture with it.
Right, and then with those temperatures, that just allows that snow to stack up and be a fluffy snow at that. Going forward here is into Sunday. I think it's going to be in that Sunday time frame. There will be a couple hours there where that snow is really going to come down at a good clip. We could have some higher snowfall rates. This takes us through Sunday afternoon and into the evening. There you can see some of that change in air mass working in through Richmond, Washington, D.C., and Philly, where ice is then going to be our attention as we turn our attention to that probability there.
Lower Hudson Valley and North Jersey could be a different precip type than you see on the 95 corridor. It's going to be that close. A razor thin change between what we might see in New York City and what we might see farther inland or even into New Jersey. I mean, the storm, and I guess not too confident to say it's going to be all snow or all sleet, but I think a mix is healthy to approach a storm like this. But Sunday is going to be an interesting day. I think bottom line, we can all agree, though, it's going to be cold.
Yes, we do want to hunker down. I mean, you don't want to go out with temperatures that are going to be that cold. We continue into Monday, and for Richmond off to New York, things move out of here, but then we're in the Northeast where we continue to accumulate with that snow on the backside of that area of low pressure. And we talk about that area of low pressure, and it's really going to the sweet spot. So it's the benchmark, the 70-40 line. If you're rooting for a snowstorm, you want that area of low pressure to be as close as that as possible. And as I'm looking at the ensemble members where they're putting the low pressure, it looks right near it.
Yeah, I know. And that would mean that along the 95 corridor, we will maximize the potential of getting the highest snows, and maybe Boston's going to be the city. We'll see. I know that the storm, and a lot of people are talking in the Northeast and New England about how this is going to evolve, and looking at the newest computer modeling since yesterday, we have seen maybe a slightly warmer nose for the 95 corridor, so we have to talk about the sleet potential, which would cut down the snow totals, but we have to give it time and see if this thing will change between now and this is Sunday, Monday. So we still have comfortably another full day of model runs and data.
And there's still so much that could evolve with that area of low pressure that could change the thinking and change the trajectory of this storm. But I think when we've been in such a snow departure from average and in such a snow doubt, it definitely has people talking along the I-95 corridor about this big amount of snow that we could receive.
And I think when you look at the highest snow totals, I think we will be close to that 10-year mark since we've seen snow snows like this going back to 2016. We're not going to see probably numbers that we saw in 2016, but if you're hoping for a half a foot to upwards of a foot of snow and you live along the 95 corridor, then okay, you know, we'll still be talking about it.
I wanted to bring up the closer look at the New York City Metro because you did bring that up. And this is what we're calling for that spot, around a foot. But there have been some talks about the uncertainty, especially for Long Island, to your point about some of that sleet mixing on in as you get the warmer air.
We'll see if that 12 to 18 inches will verify. If you're asking me just today, this morning, and telling you the forecast can change this evening, I'm a little closer to that 12 inch, maybe even less than 12 inch if we have the sleet and the freezing rain, but more so the sleet. However, the moisture that's available will have the potential to produce this type.
Right.
Of number.
You have all that streaming out of the Gulf.
All right, we got to track it, and it starts in the southern plains. This major winter storm will bring first rain, already seeing that this morning, and then the Arctic air brings in the freezing rain, sleet, and snow. And this is going to eventually move into the southeast and up the east coast as we head toward the weekend. Live coverage here on Fox Weather. It continues all weekend long. Look at our team stretch from Texas all the way into eventually Boston, where Melanie will be heading. We are your Winter Storm HQ. Extended coverage all weekend long. And you can download the Fox Weather app. It is free. We'll be right back.
As America braces for a massive winter storm, Fox Weather has every angle covered with crippling snow and ice targeting more than 35 states. More expertise, more reports from inside the worst of the storm, more weather news than you can find anywhere else. Stay informed around the clock. You can stream on your TV. Learn how at foxweather.tv. Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ.
No, we're switching to Scribe for training.
Personalized, customized, truly custom in the community, and it's so needed.
If you own a diesel, you use DEF. Over time, crystal buildup in your emission system can lead to an expensive repair. That's why Rizlone created DEF Crystal Clean. A single bottle removes crystals while cleaning and restoring your entire emission system.
That's better. It's actually clearing up. That freezing rain is going to start coming on in, and I just got this word from Mayor Dickens. He is the mayor of Atlanta. 21 salt spreaders, 22 brine trucks, and they're going to start spreading and treating the roads at midnight tonight all around the metro area. The priority, obviously, the highest traveled areas on the roads. Also, sidewalks. So we've got that. He's urging residents to stay off the roads of Atlanta, starting that too. Now, I hate to see this, because when you see a forecast of a half inch to maybe as much as 3/4 of an inch of icing on the trees, on the power lines, you introduce any kind of wind to that, which we're going to have. Remember, we're wedged in with that northeast wind. We're going to see whole trees come down. That means power is going to be out. And when your power inevitably goes out with this ice storm, we are not going to see temperatures above freezing until Tuesday afternoon. So once you're out of power, be prepared. Some way of heating your house. You've got the gas fires hopefully are working for you as well. You have a generator, make sure it's outside of the house when you turn it on, because we're going to be in the deep freeze. And even on Tuesday afternoon, we hit 40. By Tuesday night after the sun sets, our temperatures go back down into the teens. This is going to be a prolonged, long-lived, rolling nightmare starting tomorrow afternoon and lasting through at least Monday. And then we're just back into the cold.
Problem is, Bob, that cold air damming. And I think that's been the Boat Springs, right? It looked as if maybe Atlanta would see the snow. But now, as we look, there has been an overall shift to the north. But what does that cold air damming do? Yeah. It could be a curveball.
Well, that's the problem. When you have a strong high-pressure center and it's positioned perfectly, it's right over New York, really, in New England, that funnels that northeast wind, and it's a strong high pressure. That's a constant feed of colder, drier air. You introduce that warm nose at about 750 millibars. It comes up there. It rains out. It automatically evaporates, which cools it, which keeps things below freezing at the surface for a prolonged period of time. Now, Atlanta Metro might switch over to rain before it goes back into the cold stuff, but to me, it looks like it's all on for Charlotte, for Chattanooga, for going all the way through areas by Knoxville. Now you got ice storm warnings all the way up there, Asheville included. This quarter between I-85 and then northward up into Chattanooga, it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be a prolonged problem.
Yep, not every storm we call crippling, but it really looks like this one's going to be particularly crippling and probably memorable for people that deal with the power outages. It's inevitable at this point. All right, meteorologist Bob Van Dillen, we know at the top of the hour you're going to be there in Roswell. We'll talk to you then. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it. We have much more too on Fox Weather. We'll have the mayor of Oxford, Mississippi in just a couple of minutes. She's here to discuss how her city is bracing for a dangerous ice storm this weekend, and the Big Apple gearing up for one of the biggest storms in years. Next hour, New York City Emergency Deputy Commissioner is going to join Fox Weather. Keep it here. A lot still ahead on the network. We'll be right back.
For the ones who rise to every challenge, there's Granger. For the ones who get it done.
Everything in the atmosphere is going to shift east. And as that does so, a surface low will form, and we're going to watch this area of low pressure bring in big snows again to areas just receiving some snow earlier in the day on Saturday for Sunday before this all moves into the northeast. And it's actually the northeast that could have some of the highest snow totals before this event is over. It's also a slightly warmer system that we have to follow. The trends with this coastal low that's going to form in the northeast could very well produce a little bit of sleet for parts of the I-95 corridor. We'll see what ultimately happens, but throughout the week, we've been beefing up our coverage out in the field, of course, here in Studio W2, but from Dallas all the way to Boston, we're going to have our teams that are displaced, Melanie. I think when we look at who could see it worse, I don't know. Snow in Boston, where you're at, could be some of the highest totals, but then we've got...
But then you have to look at the ice potential.
Yes.
And even where Bain is, going back and forth with different types of precipitation. So let's focus in on the central and southern plains, right in the bullseye today. We'll get on the ground and check in with Fox Weather meteorologist Fain Froney. She joins us from Dallas, where you see a lot of low clouds in the back, and you are bundled up, a sign that temperatures are dropping. And as we go to you over the next 24 hours, these conditions are just going to continue to change and deteriorate, Fain.
Yeah, exactly, Melanie. I mean, as we move throughout the next few hours, you're probably going to see me putting on more and more layers, more hats, and even putting on my gloves. The gloves are staying off for now, but tomorrow we're going to be bundled up even more. I mean, we are expecting those temperatures to fall very quickly late tonight. Now, right now, we're in the upper 40s, low 50s. It probably doesn't look like it because I'm all bundled up, but it's very chilly out here because of the winds as well as the rain that's been coming down. So it's been a little bit of a dreary day here throughout Texas and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But as we move throughout the later half of the day, we are expecting those temperatures to start to plummet. So we'll see this rain actually turning into that freezing rain and even that sleet potential as we get into the later half of the late night hours and overnight into tomorrow morning. That's really when everything takes off. So we're kind of the catalyst here in Texas as this storm system starts to make its track across the entire country. So let's break down the forecast in the short term. What we have going on in the next few hours is that, again, that freezing rain and that ice is going to start to come in later on tonight. A little bit to the north of us, probably going to see it around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock this evening where they'll see that shift. Here in Dallas, probably closer to that midnight mark is when we'll see that switch over to freezing rain and sleet. This will continue all night long, throughout the morning hours as well. Maybe a slight break in the afternoon, but then the precipitation continues on into your later half of your Saturday and overnight into Sunday as well. When we're talking about ice impacts, that's going to be the most dangerous impact that we have here in Dallas. We could see 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of ice accumulating on the roads, on our power lines as well. This is going to cause, obviously, dangerous conditions on the roadways. Officials are urging people to stay off the roads as we continue throughout the entirety of this weekend and even the beginning of next week as well. On top of this, too, major power outages will be possible, especially as we do have those winds starting to pick up on Sunday. So we'll have ice accumulating on those power lines, and then the winds pick up Sunday, and that could cause tree branches to fall down that are already heavy with all of the ice accumulating on them and ended up hitting those power lines, which again, causing those major power outages. Let's talk about the cold too, though, because it's not just this winter storm warning that we have that is going into effect at 6 o'clock local time this evening, but it's also going to be those extreme cold warnings that go into effect on Saturday and continue into Sunday as well. Now, Sunday, again, those winds pick up, which means the wind chills are going to be brutal. I mean, we're talking negative temperature, feel-like temperatures for us throughout Dallas, -5, -10 degrees. As we get into our Sunday, we'll be in the teens for the next few days. And that cold air, it sticks around. It's going to stick around through Monday, Tuesday, and even into Wednesday potentially, which means anything that falls within the next 48 hours, it's going to stay. It's going to stick here. It has nowhere else to go. It has no ability to melt anytime soon. So those roads are going to be dangerous, treacherous, all throughout the beginning of the work week, at least here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And of course, farther south, like near Austin and into Houston, they are still going to get that wintry mix. Maybe not as much as what we're going to see in northern Texas, but could still accumulate a good 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice on their roadways. Now, when we're talking about Austin and Houston, they are going to thaw out a little bit quicker. Their temperatures will just be a little bit warmer than what we have in Dallas, so maybe those roads may be a little bit better by the time they get into the beginning of the work week. But as we move throughout this week, it is going to be really tough for folks to get around, hence why a lot of people have already been preparing in the past couple of days. I mean, shelves at grocery stores have been cleared out almost. Even we saw that starting on Wednesday when we first got here. So already by now, folks have done their prep and are staying home, attempting to stay off the roads for the next few days. And Governor Greg Abbott, he did have a presser yesterday briefing the media on what's to come and what they expect officials to be doing, and also making sure that their crews are out and about, making sure the roadways are okay, and of course that the power outages are staying limited as well. Take a listen to what he had to say yesterday.
One of the most dangerous ways in which you can expose your life to harm is if you make the decision to get out on a roadway that's already had precipitation on it. When you have slick ice or something like that, you may not be able to see it. If you're in an area with this ultra cold temperature that also has precipitation, do not be on the road unless you have to be on the road.
That message is very, very clear. If you do not have to be out there, do not be on the roads. I mean, obviously, we're looking back into the past of Texas. When you hear ice storm, a lot of folks are thinking of what happened back in February of 2021. Just absolutely devastating ice storm that moved throughout the entire state. So many lives lost. Now, we're not saying that that is going to be what's happening here with this ice storm, but it does have a lot of people on edge here in Texas. So for the most part, people are expecting the worst and hoping for the best as we move throughout this weekend and the beginning of the work week. I'll send it back to you guys.
Bain, I've seen a lot of chatter on social media saying whoever you're hanging out with this weekend, be prepared because you'll likely be stuck with them until early next week, until that ice melts. So you want it to be a best friend if you're stuck with them.
I agree. I have a good team, so I'm stuck with my buddy David and Douglas here. So we're gonna have fun.
All right, you're in good company. That's our Fox Weather meteorologist, Bain Froney. Bain, thank you so much. Meanwhile, the Southern Plains region is gearing up for some of what's to come this weekend. You can see Texas DOT workers prepping for the storm, and beside that, empty shelves in grocery stores, a theme that we continue to see across the country, and likely will see more of this as we go forward, as more of the areas continue to be impacted by this impending storm. Live look right now at our water vapor satellite over the past 12 hours, actually, rewinding that, and you can see this upper level low that's near Baja California. It's that one that's helping to transport energy out in front of it, and out ahead of that you have some moisture that's going to be streaming in from the Pacific, as well as eventually more moisture getting pulled up from the Gulf of America. So we have a large amount of moisture that's getting transported, and that is going to interact with this cold air that's working down with this Arctic high pressure in place. You can already follow some of the surface pressure lines and see that more of that dense air is getting pushed down farther south. And we have experienced that this morning with more of those temperatures continuing to drop. Oklahoma City, we have you in the mix, 29 degrees now, but look at that, Wichita at 12 degrees. So most of the region that we are talking about across across the Central Plains. Just now seeing rain, but that is going to continue to change. Watching the I-70 and I-40 corridor, Stephen, as that bullseye for where the highest snow amounts could continue to accumulate. And we can't forget the ice.
Can't forget the ice. Actually, Kansas among the states that have just instituted a state of emergency. So they're the latest. I think we're up to now a dozen states of emergencies. But yeah, the ice threat's going to be the sinister element. I mean, there's no way else to ignore it. But I think of even Kansas, where it's not going to be as much ice. It's just going to be snow. But I-70, you know how it goes. You get these, probably not a blizzard, but you get significant snow. Interstates become impassable, and that snow can be so nasty as it's falling too. So
it just leads to one incident, and then you have this domino effect of more incidents that continue. Future radar, really you'll start to see more of that transition by this evening when some of this ice starts to mix in across parts of Texas and Oklahoma, continuing overnight into tomorrow. That's when we see more wide-ranging impacts with the ice. We're all getting a little hungry here in the 4th hour.
Yeah, right. We've got the moisture. It's going to be shifting east too. And I think that this time tomorrow, so like 4 or 5 o'clock, we get a lull in the activity. But there's still going to be
that
more
lull right here across Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Yeah, if you want to try to enjoy the snow, and if you have snow, get out there and try to enjoy it. But you're going to really need to be bundled up. And we're talking wind chills that, as far south as the Ozarks in Missouri, could be well below 10 below.
And that cold is going to continue sticking around, even though by Sunday, a lot of this is moving out of the region, but then making its way across the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast. Shreveport is one of the areas really being highlighted for some high amounts of ice to start to accrete, and that could be, I think they were saying, there's a moderate probability, so that's about 30 to 50%, the National Weather Service, that you could get about an inch of ice or higher.
I mean, to see that type of probability for an inch of ice, you often have ice storm warnings that are issued when there's more than a quarter of an inch. Right. But to be that high and to have a probability like that, it is concerning, and we're prepared for it. I mean, we're getting ready for it here at Fox Weather and across the country. Actually, we have some video as we had to break from Dominion Energy. It's a power company based in Richmond, Virginia. Dominion says that they're ready for this weekend's major winter storm. Hundreds of trucks and well as staff, they're ready to go as parts of Central Virginia are forecast to get more than 3/4 of an inch of dangerous ice. Take a listen.
A lot, like 2 to 5 inches is enough to knock out the power. So that is the more concerning thing that we're looking at right now, is to see how much ice we're going to get.
A little bit of feedback there, but I think we made out what he said. We're breaking down the very complex forecast for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. That's when Fox Weather returns. Keep it here.
No, we're switching to Scribe for training.
Gut health support, daily nutrients, of course, billions of live probiotics.
Of our flights for tomorrow have been straight up canceled. So do check in with the airports. Plus,
The Fox Weather Field crews are firing up. We have Brandy Campbell out in Mississippi, which is set to be one of the hardest hit places by the storm. Of course, Bob teasing that she's going to be out there in Oxford, Ole Miss. We've got Mike Seidel in Tulsa to get in on the latest as this storm is set to move in across Oklahoma. That's just the very start of our line team coverage all weekend long. Keep it right here on Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ. We'll be right back.
Got a tough welding job? Titanium welders from Harbor Freight make it easy, quick to set up, dual voltage compatible, and built with advanced inverter tech for clean, consistent welds. Built to perform, priced to save, only at Harbor Freight.
That unfolds as we go through this weekend. As you head a little further south, you get into the sleet line, and then eventually you can see for Dallas, not expecting much of a snow footprint in Dallas-Fort Worth. We are expecting this to be more of an icing event here. When we take a look at the temperatures, through 8 o'clock this evening, again, we take a look at the model returns, 4 degrees in Kansas City, 12 in Wichita. We are starting to saturate the air. I think this is going to be really light initially tonight on into tomorrow. By tomorrow morning, Dallas squarely in the grips of ice. That is going to continue for us through about midday. Brief break in the action, but don't let your guard down because we are expecting this to continue to work back in. It'll come in waves as we head through the weekend, finally seeing some break in what's falling from the sky Sunday, but then that Arctic air settles in to challenge the recovery efforts. All right, in the southeast, big update with Atlanta now under that ice storm warning, seeing perhaps a bit of an increase in the opportunity of ice accumulations across the south. Shreveport, Louisiana, one of the areas that we'll be watching for very closely. Temperatures right now are in the 50s, lower 50s, but we do have our winter storm warning in effect there in Shreveport. I want to look a little farther east because up across northern Mississippi, Greenville, Tupelo on the I-55 just south of Memphis, this is where we have a signal of more than an inch of ice in the forecast. And now Atlanta, just south of the I-20 corridor, we have that ice storm warning that's been expanded at the base of the Appalachians, North Georgia, and then into the Piedmont of South Carolina, and probably see some impacts up towards Charlotte that could be quite significant. So we're talking here, this corridor, this belt. We've got our Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell, who's going to be up for us in Oxford, Mississippi, checking in with her, where I think in terms of impacts, this could be a zone that sees the most prolonged impacts in terms of icing footprint. Same thing goes here from Atlanta to Charlotte up the I-84 corridor. We've got millions of people here gearing up for a very tough stretch as we go through Saturday and Sunday. Now, there's been some question on that warm nose starting to work its way in, right? But I think the overall cold air damming signal that we've had in place with Arctic high, ushering in that cold, dense air that just settles in at the base of the Appalachians across the Carolinas and North Georgia, seems to be kind of gripping a little tighter in the forecast. But you look at these totals, I mean, widespread power outages, the weight of even just a half an inch of ice adds upwards of 500 plus pounds to power lines and trees. So I would truly be honest when I say prepare to hear the sound of that cracking and just be aware that power will likely go out, and make sure you have what you need, generators, gas tanks, to get through the next several days. We here at Fox Weather are gearing up to cover this storm for you 24/7 as we head through this weekend. People are getting what they need at the store, plows, salt trucks, they're on the roads. We have full team coverage. We'll continue here on Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ.
Hey there, Nick Oza here. We're back. It's time for Fox Weather Deal, sponsored by Knocking, as we're always here to help you save on products that'll keep you prepared no matter what is in the forecast. To start shopping, go to Fox Weather Deal.
What we're tracking right now, because we're finally in the timeline here at Fox Weather, we can start to look at that real-time data and give you an idea of how this storm is going to continue to progress. Of course, final preparations are underway. We've got crews, thousands and thousands thousands of crews that are set to work over the course of the next 24 plus hour shifts, right? As we continue through the next at least 3 to 4 days through the start of this week. We have ice storm warnings that have been expanded into major metro areas like Atlanta. We have winter storm warnings that stretch from New Mexico to New England. So here's what we're watching. We have this piece of energy that is rounding the base of the four corners. This has been a really key piece to the puzzle with this southern stream that is going to kick in. This is what's responsible for bringing in that warm, moist air that's going to cut over that cold, dense air from the piece of northern energy that is that Arctic high, right? So here's the Arctic high. We also have another piece of energy that's going to dive down around that ridge of high pressure and give us at the base of this trough the runway for our storm to further develop. But this surface pressure, when you talk about this expanding, deepening high, is what's settling in that Arctic air at the surface. It's cold, it's dense, it's heavy, and we have a couple of showers beginning to work their way in, and you can actually see almost the visual of what I mean by a dense, heavy air mass. What you're looking at here in these blues and purples, that's the cold air that's bringing us wind chills, -30, -40 across the upper Midwest. We're down into the teens across the I-40 corridor. And then as we look about a mile high, we have a very strong southern feed out of South Texas of that warm, moist air. And so about a mile high, you have this kind of footprint. You have to think of the atmosphere like a layer of pancakes. And so that cold, dense air is quite literally cutting underneath of that warm nose. And that's what sets the stage for us when we talk about the icing threats. But look how dry the air is now. Now you can also see that same funnel that I was talking about. You can see it kind of nudging away that dry air. That's going to be important for moistening or really saturating that column of air across North Texas and Oklahoma. As we start to see more of this green take over, that's when we're going to start to see more of the rain and the ice and the snow actually make it to the ground. Because when you have a dry air footprint, cutting away at that can be really challenging. And sometimes that is what is most challenging, something that models often have a very hard time at depicting. So the real-time look is why we're here, getting you an idea of, I do expect that as we go through this afternoon, what you see falling from the sky when you look at radar is going to start to really actually make it to the surface. Dallas, we've got a couple of showers, but if you take a look at Oklahoma, you can see things are quiet right now. That's because the moisture hasn't quite worked its way north yet. We will see that take shape as that southern stream really starts to fire up, and we're expecting to see that energy and that warm nose, that really kind of conveyor belt, pick up in intensity as we go through tonight and then continue through the duration of the storm. That's what spreads this footprint of ice and snow all the way across the southeast, and then we start to pull that up into the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley, and eventually that transfer of energy occurs on the East Coast. As we look up into the mid-Atlantic, the I-95 corridor, as that low develops, you can really see how this all comes together as we close out the weekend into Monday, and then cold air is just going to settle in to lock in the impact. So we are far from over here at Fox Weather as we continue our coverage, nearing the onset, the beginnings of this massive winter storm impacting more than 240 million people. We'll track it for you here all weekend long, right here on Fox Weather. We have extended coverage and our full crews out giving you every angle of this storm. Fox Weather is your Winter Storm HQ. We've got another hour coming up. Keep it here.
This company is going viral for its new process that gives you permanent teeth in just 24 hours. If you're missing 5 or more teeth, Nuvia Dental Implant Center has a life-changing solution. No dentures, no temps, no partials, and no waiting months for your finals. They're changing lives with next-day smiles that look, function, and feel real. You walk in and walk out the next day with permanent teeth made with the market's strongest material. People are calling it a new life, and it's easy to see why. Thousands and thousands were eligible, and you could be too. Click the link, you never know.
inches, and then the Arctic air slamming in behind it. So coming up after the break, we're going to be looking at live shots again. We're going to see what it looks like for the middle part of the country, the mid-south, the southeast, because this storm has legs, and we've got it totally covered for you. We're Fox Weather. We are your Winter Storm HQ. And we're going to...
As America braces for a massive winter storm, Fox Weather has every angle covered with crippling snow and ice targeting more than 35 states. More expertise, more reports from inside the worst of the storm, more weather news than you can find anywhere else. Stay informed around the clock. You can stream on your TV. Learn how at foxweather.tv. Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ.
Personalized, customized, truly custom in the community, and it's so needed.
Get travel alerts 24/7 right at your fingertips with the Fox Weather app, or watch us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device. Fox Weather, weathering it together.
Here you are.
Now it's time to bring the pain.
Air at the surface, it's quite literally undercutting the warm, moist air that is trying to bulge up from the south. You look at our coloring scale here, anything in the green and the yellows, that is air about a mile high, so sitting just above the surface, and you can almost just see the erosion and the undercut of that cold, dense air that sits underneath of this. It's this combination of that cold air and the warm, moist air that does unfortunately lead to that perfect playground for that icing concern. We also have a bit of an erosion of that dry air, and this is the beginnings of our winter storm taking shape in the plains. This is real-time data, by the way, and that's what makes this really important, what we're watching today, because no longer are we really looking at the models to decipher what's going to happen, but we're now looking at the real-time observations. And that's what we have here when we take a look at our available moisture. Zooming in a little farther south, I want to highlight this stream right here out of South Texas. You can see the arrows and this conveyor belt that is strengthening up from the south. That is air in the mid-levels, and that's the important piece that is going to start to erode away that dry air that's keeping things really quiet across Oklahoma. And I do think that we are starting to see the opportunity for more rain, and as that cold air starts to anchor itself in, the opportunity too for this changeover of ice and snow. So as we look into the Fox weather model, the timing of this, expecting to see the worst of our impacts start to increase by the evening hours. That pink is a shield of freezing rain that is going to accumulate upwards of a couple tenths of an inch. Then don't be surprised if we get a bit of a lull. And this is that cold, dry air in the forecast that's starting to take shape for us. It's wanting to win out, but the thing is that we have such a strong feed of moisture from the south and that conveyor belt of that low-level winds that we might briefly get a cut in the coverage of our snow and ice as we head through Saturday morning, midday. But with that secondary piece of energy, that low that's going to start to kick its way out of the four corners Saturday after you need to really bring this kind of battleground of that warm, moist air to then meet up with that cold, dense air, and it just spreads a 1,500-mile swath of ice from central Texas to the East Coast and snow north of the I-40 corridor up into the Northeast. So this is Sunday morning when at one single time here, we have at least nearly 40 states being impacted by this winter storm. I'm going to bring in Ian Oliver now because Ian's standing by, waiting off to the side here. We have, when you talk about a 1,500 mile swath of impact,
right,
simultaneously happening from central Texas to the East Coast, I mean, keeping up with that, airport operations will be effectively shut down.
It can't be done. Yeah, the swath is just too large to avoid major impacts. And then you consider what those impacts are just across the board. It's the biggest snowstorm we've had somewhere between half a decade and a decade. But then the swath of purple, which you were just telling us about, that ice storm warning, the expanded coverage there. Man, you're talking about an ice storm warning now from Texas over to the Carolinas.
And when it comes to ice, I mean, it's hard to say you don't really want to rank the impact because it is going to be significant for everybody who feels this, right? But when it comes to the icing concerns, the weight of ice alone, when we're talking a quarter of an inch up to an inch, which is in the forecast for parts of the Mississippi Valley, that's adding almost 1,000 pounds to trees and power lines to the roof of your home, right? Yeah. So that's the added danger, not just to the prolonged stretch of power outages, but also to the damage of infrastructure.
Yeah, and just a heads up to folks, our neighbor right next door, Sandra Smith from Fox News Channel's America Reports, they're going to be coming by. They've been checking in with our team, Mike Seidel, out in the field. Lydia Hu is covering the impacts to travel, of which there will be many. You just heard Jane speak with the folks at Hartsfield-Jackson. Yeah, one of many places that are included in an ice storm warning. And as we were just talking about, this sprawling coverage to consider that we have a winter weather alerts in some way, shape, or form that go from Arizona all the way up through the state of Maine. It's tough to recall a storm that had a footprint this big. The size of this storm is considerable, and then you throw in those impacts, which will be devastating in many locations. So you look at our storm impacts here, 12 to 20 plus inches of snow, so many different places with a timeline from left to right, west to east, as we move from effectively now through the early part of the weekend. All of these impacts in all of these places, folks wondering what this storm is going to be like for them and their family. Well, that's the range. We just bumped up Boston. Boston's now up into the 18 to 24 inch range. That ice, since says greater than 3/4 of an inch, we typically use about half an inch as that threshold where things get destructive. That's going to be expected for a huge swath in through here from Texas, across the Sabine River, all the way over into the Carolinas. We could see totals in through here in excess of about an inch. So that is going to be a huge problem as we move forward through the next several days. Here comes Sandra from America Reports.
Can we barge on in here? You guys are covering this every hour of the day. Give us the very latest on your big screen here. What are folks looking at as far as snow accumulation right now?
Yeah, Sandra, I know there's been so much chatter about this, and folks are saying, is this storm really going to be as bad as they're saying? Yes, this forecast has improved for snow. It's worsened across the board. Places like Boston, we've got them now up into the 18 to 24 inch range.
I keep saying this, but I'm going to say it again. That's dark purple, meaning it could be up to 2 feet of snow.
Yeah, and I think part of the doubt comes in. This is the biggest snowstorm, half decade to a decade across the board. DC, Philly, up through New York and Boston. The biggest story, though, it's big snow numbers that always get headlines. Ice.
Wow.
Those ice storm warnings got expanded considerably.
And that's particularly an area where in the country right now, the ice accumulation?
Texas now, all the way over to the Carolinas. The worst of it, likely going to be right in through there, places like Oxford, Mississippi. They may see in excess of an inch of ice accretion, widespread power outages, and those will be extended.
Talk to us about timing. We're all looking at some areas are starting to see the storm impacts early tomorrow.
Yeah, we're just about in it now. This is our exclusive Fox weather model. We've been watching that high pressure, the Arctic air. Feels like temperatures up across the northern tier approaching 50 below zero. That's crashing into Gulf air. Later on this afternoon, ice, snow, 2 separate corridors. They only grow in size through this evening.
All right, my family's right there in Lawton, Oklahoma. Are they? I mean, these are places that aren't used to getting this much, ice and snow. It's going to be an issue for some folks.
Northern parts, this could be top 5 storm for Oklahoma.
What about travel? How are we affected so far as airplanes and car travel?
I think the big thing here is the the sprawling size, the scope of this storm, even if you don't have plans that take you to or from a spot that's in the storm, maybe your airplane does. I mean, this is going to be so widespread. We've been speaking on Fox Weather to representatives from airports across the country. We'd be surprised if things get back to normal before the middle of next week.
Oh, wow. Well, that would be good. It sounds kind of fast after a storm like that.
Yeah,
but
that's
that will
best
still
case
be
scenario.
Major delays. Right now, we're over 2,000 airplane delays and over 500 cancellations.
Yeah, 11 states have declared states of emergency.
All right, so is Bob Van Dillen out in the field for us? I believe he's in Georgia.
Let's pull him in. That's a spot in the Atlanta metro area that just got added to an ice storm warning. There's BVD. Bob, you're on the northern side of town, right? Could be two separate storms, truly, depending on where you're at in the Atlanta metro.
Yeah, you know what? It could be a big rainmaker if you're way far south of Atlanta. But at this point, to me, it's going to be a big ice storm maker from here all the way through Charlotte. He said it right. It doesn't feel like it right now, though, you guys. You look behind me. It's 51 degrees in Roswell, Georgia. It's business as usual. But the chatter around here is the fact they're going to start brining the roads. That's going to be at midnight tonight, and they're going to go on nonstop until this storm is done. But right now, it's Friday afternoon. People are out there having a good time. By this time tomorrow, not so great, you guys.
Bob, it's almost like we're keeping you from your pint to Guinness or something. Bob, it's remarkable.
I know.
But this is really what can get in the way of some preparing adequately for storms. They think, it's still pretty nice out here. Is it really going to get that bad? But Roswell's going to get it.
Too, that's no almost. We are most certainly keeping him. But yeah, you have to use this time, the final hours, to get prepared for this.
Bob, thank you for the update. Appreciate
No
that.
doubt.
All right. Well, we hope everybody will be safe and stay warm out there and hunker down if you can.
Of course. Yep.
All right. Be safe. Thank you.
Good to see you, Sandra. Yeah, that's the word, the sprawling impacts across the country for this storm. We said it's 40 states that feel some form of impact. So just know that as we move forward through the next several hours, we're into this. We'll have nonstop coverage 24/7 of this storm, taking you through the weekend and beyond. That's a look at our team out in the field. We got all of us back in the Fox Forecast Center here in Weather Command. Stay with Fox Weather as we move through this storm and beyond.
Scammers demand payment with gift cards. Don't share codes or personal details.
Are you researching dental implants?
There's a lot of dental offices that'll talk about doing their teeth in the day process. A lot of times what they mean is they'll do the surgery and give you some sort of teeth the next day, but those teeth are not permanent teeth. They're temporary teeth that you wear while you're healing.
In the old way, you would get a set of acrylic or temporary material teeth that get screwed right onto the implants.
In reality, you're getting, let's say, a converted denture. These small-to-day teeth that you get to, they're made with dentures. It's basically plastic. It's going to break. Here at Nuvia, we're able to deliver permanent teeth in 24 hours.
24 hours after my surgery, my beautiful arches were fixed in my mouth. And not only did I have a bite and a smile, but a lot less mental anxiety.
People are always asking me, are those permanent? Are they going to last a lifetime? Well, yeah, they are. 2.5 years later, and they're just like the first day I got them, just as strong as ever.
During the surgery, you're not only going to be treated by your treating surgical doctor, you'll also have a CRNA, a nurse anesthetist there as well. So you'll have two people that have certification in keeping you safe during your procedure so that you make sure that you're safe during the entire process.
Nuvia's offering the final permanent teeth. These teeth are basically indestructible. During the 4 to 6 month period right after your implants get placed, osseointegration is happening. So those implants are in the bone and your body is creating new bone that grows into those implants and locking them in. Nuvia has thousands of 5-star reviews and over 50,000 Facebook members for you to connect with. Not to mention their 99.13% success rate to back it up. Nuvia's new way of doing things actually helps the healing process along. The reality of it is, back in the early 2000s, giving you a set of teeth, either the day or day after you have your surgery, that was incredibly controversial. Back in the early 2000s, that was the new way of doing things. 20 years later, there is definitely room for improvement.
It's literally the day of surgery. You get the implants placed. We get the scans. We get all the records. We send this to the lab, and literally just overnight, they'll make the zirconia prosthesis, and they'll be delivered the next morning.
What do you think the best way for those implants to integrate is? With a set of teeth hanging on them that has some microflexure to it, or with a rigid splint that's going to keep those implants perfectly in place and still so that your body can create the bone? Old way, new way.
This type of demand, I would say Strom, probably the last one that I remember is about 4 or 5 years ago. We're ready, you know, as long as we can keep going to my warehouse and get, you know, more supplies, we're here.
Yeah, listen, we're ready too. In Atlanta, we've already seen the shelves already displaced. We've got hardly anything when you're talking about trying to get these provisions. But I was just talking to the guy, my wife was actually talking to a Publix person down here at the food store. They're getting extra rounds of supplies in here before the storm actually hits. So some good news right here. We've seen this storm in the forecast now for the last several days. So it shouldn't take anybody off guard at this point. Hopefully you're getting those preparations rushed to completion, mainly if you live around Mississippi and Alabama. By the way, Alabama just got put into a state of emergency also, just like Georgia, because of the incoming ice. It's going to be problematic by tomorrow night through Sunday. But just set the scene for you right here. I'm in beautiful Roswell, Georgia. It's my hometown. Love it. It's about 20 miles north of Midtown Atlanta. I can see my church people right down the street. Sunshine is almost out, but you got a couple of breaks of the sun. Jane, it's 51 degrees right now, which just makes people think, yeah, right, this is not going to happen. But we know that Arctic wedge is going to be bleeding right down, not just for the south, but it's going to keep that air locked in place for the northeast too.
And you know, that's a similar story to what I feel like we have been experiencing in the northeast. I mean, yesterday, we were like almost 50 degrees in New York City. Today, I didn't need all the layers coming in. It's a kind of fake mild warm up that we've had yesterday and today. But we know, I mean, today we are negative 50 up across the upper Midwest. That Arctic high is going to continue to bleed east. And as soon as tonight, those temperatures are going to drop like a rock. And that's what really just settles in. It just sets the stage for this winter weather. And we now have winter storm warnings that are in effect. They've been upgraded for all of our major cities on the I-95 here.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch this. In the population, once you add New York, Philadelphia, DC, Baltimore into the mix of winter storm warnings, I mean, that population just explodes. Think about all the millions of people that are going to be affected by this. And we're Fox Weather. We're going to be on it 24/7 for you this weekend because we know that this is going to be a very impactful storm. But it's all about the snow for the northeast and where that snow starts to mix in with sleet to maybe perhaps buzz down some of those snow accumulations. But at this point, you get 8 inches of snow, you get 12 inches of snow. There's not a heck of a lot of difference right there.
No, I agree with you. I think, you know, obviously numbers, you know, do we break into the double digits will be important. I mean, just for the factor of could this be the biggest snowstorm that we've had in a decade, in years for our major cities? But I think, you know, a lot of it has to do with what we talk about all the time, the placement of this coastal low, where it develops, how strong is it, does it linger around, and how quickly does it maybe bring a bit of that sleet, rain, snow line into the I-95 corridor. So eyeing up the snow forecast, the trend has been to bring the highest totals a little farther north into, say, New England, perhaps up through the Hudson Valley, into the Catskills. But I'm still not by any means saying that New York City isn't going to get upwards of 12 inches of snow. In fact, I would be willing to say that when we look at this snow forecast, sure, maybe I would be trended towards the lower end of the range, but I still think that this is going to be a snow maker at the onset, and it's not till the very tail end of this for a couple of hours Sunday evening that we see perhaps a transition. But then that brings its own problem, Bob. You have 10, 12 inches of snow on the ground and then a couple of hours of freezing rain or sleet. I mean, imagine trying to clear that off.
No, and you know what this reminds me as a kid when those blockbusters came in, I had to shovel out the blizzard of '83. The blizzard of '96 was a big one too. I remember my dad's like, just go do it in layers. Go out there and shovel the driveway. by the time you're done with layer number 1, it's already covered up behind you. You got to go do it again. That's going to be the situation right here. So if I was a kid with this one, Jane, and I was shoveling snow walks and driveways for a living for this storm, I'd make like $300.
I was gonna say charge a little more because you're gonna the frequency of you having to go out there. And you know what's one thing about clearing the snow? Because this is gonna be a light powdery snow. So it does make it easier for you to get out there and get ahead of it and clean it away. Now it'll probably transition to a heavier, wetter snow as this pink starts to work up on the board. But the good news is, you know, Bob, you and I both know that we're still in the phase of this forecast that this can still change. Wobble a little farther to the north by 50 miles, a little further south by 50 miles. So this isn't entirely locked in, but I do think that there's a growing consensus among models that we'll get a little changeover for the I-95 New York to DC, but that's already after we pick up nearly a foot of snow.
And you talk about waffling. I've seen it just today alone. When I went to bed last night, that warmer air was pushing that snow line a little farther up towards northern Jersey, where you get mixing and maybe buzz down their snowfall totals. You wake up this morning, now the deterministic models are bringing that cold air back down into areas like the Delaware Valley, which would include major snow potential for Philadelphia into New York. So you're right, there's energy still across the Pacific. It hasn't really ejected totally in here. We've got about 3 days to watch it, but the best guess looks like we're going to get slammed with heavy snow west of I-95. All right, Jane, stick it right there. We're going to go out to the plains states. Who gets it first? It's going to be the plains. The rain is already locked in towards Texas, rolling into Oklahoma, where it's going to turn to sleet, freezing rain, and snow depending on where you're located. Mike Seidel is out there in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now. I just saw him on Fox News Channel. Did a heck of a job, bang-up job, and you're still out there right now with us. It is cold. I'm 51. It's not 51 where you're located, Mike.
No, yesterday here, Bob, 57. I saw you on Fox News in Roswell. Wow, what a gig today, but get ready for some, I guess, some ice and rain there. But back here, it's going to be all snow. We're safely in the cold air. In fact, temperatures tomorrow afternoon, Bob, will be in the single number, 7, 8, 9 degrees. Compare that to an average high of 50. So we're going to be about 40 degrees below average tomorrow in this part of the country. Very, very cold, and that means the snow is going to be very, very powdery, and that will blow and drift around, and that isn't part of the winter storm warning from the Weather Service here in Tulsa. There will be blowing and drifting. Now, we're not going to get wind gusts 40 miles an hour, but with the powder coming in, Bob, that means that the drifting will be easier. You don't need as much wind when it's like pixie dust, like powdered sugar. So as far as snowfall goes here, we're looking at 8 to 12 inches, but looking at the latest model runs, I'm thinking we could get 12 plus here. The latest European has upwards of 15 to 18 in this part of Oklahoma. We'll just see how it phases out and in, because it looks like there may be a break tomorrow during the afternoon. It winds down on Sunday, and temperatures will struggle to get much above 20. And next week, we barely get to freezing or above for a few hours. So the problem is everything that comes down is going to stick around. There'll be some melting. And by the way, they are pre-treating bridges and overpasses and those icy spots that they're concerned about, those typical icy spots last night and this morning here in the Tulsa area. And the governor's got the National Guard on standby. In fact, they're going to be activated for the weekend. If you're a stranded motorist, they've got these recovery teams out there to give you assistance. But the best bet is to stay off the highways, because 40 and 35 and also I-44, that's the road that goes from here to Tulsa, will be very, very troubling, trying to keep one lane open. And remember, if you've never driven 44 between Oklahoma and Tulsa, many of the interstates out here, they're wide open. There's not a lot of vegetation, so the drifting is going to be a concern. And that's why tomorrow, I know you hear this all the time, stay off the roads, but this time we really mean it, Bob, because it is going to be tough to get around, and you don't want to get stranded because the wind chills from late tonight through Monday are going to be running as cold as 15 below zero. That is dangerous weather. You don't want to get stuck in your car and have to wait for someone to come out and rescue you. So just get what you need, provisions, and hunker down. By the way, I talked to a lady yesterday, and I asked her what she was getting to get her through the storm. You know what she said, Bob? Pork chops and booze. Beer? Pork chops and booze. No, she was talking hard liquor.
Half of it.
The other lady said frozen pizza and beer. So everybody has their thing, comfort food to get through this. And this is unusual for Tulsa. We could could break the all-time storm record of 14 inches. If we're going to do 12, we might as well do 14.1, I say, and break the record, Mr. Van Dillen.
Yeah, we might, in fact. And listen, I'm just watching you right here. Your live shot compared to mine. I mean, I feel bad for you, but we're going to get socked in here by Saturday. In fact, Mike, we're supposed to be off the roads in all the Atlanta metro by tomorrow afternoon and just stay off. So Mike Seidel in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The cold air is there. The snow's about to work in. Thanks, Mike.
I was going to ask you.
Ooh, yeah, wind out there too.
Very interesting case. Because if you're living down south of I-20, say in Peachtree City or Noonan or at the airport, it's going to be a whole different world versus going up I-85 towards Gainesville.
Right, and Greenville, all those areas right there, a little farther into South Carolina, forget it. It's going to be a nightmare. So Mike Seidel out there in Oklahoma. We'll get back with you again just a little bit. Mike, thanks a lot. He's living on Tulsa time out there. All right, so what's going on next? We've got all kinds of issues developing from where Mike is located in the Southern Plains, right across the Mississippi Valley. We've got live reports all across the region in the path of this big-time winter event. Talk about a storm that's got legs. This one's got it. This is a marathon of a storm. We're at Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ, and we're going to be right back.
As America braces for a massive winter storm, Fox Weather has every angle covered with crippling snow and ice targeting more than 35 states. More expertise, more reports from inside the worst of the storm, more weather news than you can find anywhere else. Stay informed around the clock. You can stream on your TV. Learn how at foxweather.tv. Fox Weather, your Winter Storm HQ.
Gut health support, daily nutrients, of course, and billions of live probiotics.
Better. There's definitely personalized, custom on the community, and it's so needed.
Passengers going through just the timeline of when will I get my next flight?
So we're working very closely with MARTA, for example, to make sure that our airport employees can get here, especially those who provide important services like TSA employees who provide security checkpoint services. We will have our food and retail operations open for extended hours. We're making sure that those employees can get in as well. And then we will have our own airport employees throughout the campus, throughout the terminal, just making sure that stranded employees, stranded passengers can get simple things like water, blankets, or whatever they may need to be comfortable while in the airport. But the important thing is that our maintenance team will be making sure that the facility is clean and ready for our travelers to use it. And then we will have our hospitality team here making sure that they have the most pleasant experiences possible. That being said, our communications team will be busy at work making sure that the public is informed as to what's going on. There will probably be a recurring message to stay home if you do not have to come out. Call your airline or go on to atl.com or your airline's website just to get the status of your flight before leaving for the airport. We don't want you stranded here at the airport unnecessarily.
All right, Ricky, I appreciate it. That's a perfect example of why we have to communicate all our things. Remember, we had a huge hailmaker go right over ATL over the summertime, and that caused some chaos. Now we got the actual ice storm coming in as well. Ricky, thank you so much for joining us from Atlanta Airport, Hartsfield-Jackson International, biggest one in the country. All right, coming up, we still have more on this winter storm. This thing has teeth, right? It's got legs, and it's going to affect millions of people. If you live anywhere from the desert Southwest, we're talking about New Mexico into Maine and parts beyond, you're going to be affected. We'll have that. Plus, look at the temperatures. It's coming up after the break. We'll be right back.
I strip with strangers.
Breathe Right strips have spring-like bands that open your nose, instantly relieving nasal congestion, so every breath feels
He trotted through the twilight woods. His thick, russet tail, a mark of his prime, swung with a confident rhythm, a counterpoint to the soft, crunchy grass beneath his paws. A low, familiar huff announced the arrival of Vixen, a sleek female with intelligent amber eyes, emerging silently from the shadowed depths of the undergrowth. A silent descent caught Phelan's attention. Both foxes froze, their seasoned hunting instincts overridden by an inexplicable anomaly. The orb struck the earth with a soft...
As compared to yesterday, overall forecast largely on track. A little bit of tweaks here and there, but the coverage of ice storms, that's going to be the most devastating aspect of this storm. So there you go, this future radar taking you into tomorrow morning. You look at those temperatures too. We talked 4 in KC. That Arctic air moves in. We're going to have a hard time shaking it as we move through what's left of January. Let's head a little bit farther off to the east, down into the southeast. This is where we've been talking about that expanded coverage of some of the ice storm warnings. There's Lexington, Kentucky. That's Kentucky Horse Park. Beautiful. Yeah, they got been to a few of it. I thought it was Keeneland for a second, so it was slowing me down. As we move farther off to the east, this is that increasing opportunity for, we're calling it significant ice. You could probably be stronger in that wording now, destructive and in places be catastrophic ice when you see the numbers that we're talking about. No worse. We're eventually, a little bit later this hour, I mentioned we're going to check in with Brandy Campbell. Oxford, Mississippi, northern parts of Mississippi could see ice totals that exceed an inch. So same setup that we're talking about, which occurs farther back to the west, although it's exacerbated into the southeast by cold air damming. Cold air getting pumped south, stuck on the east side of the Appalachians, and it just trickles farther and farther south. You get a profile like this as you look up in the atmosphere where you're way below freezing, at least 10 degrees or so at the surface, but this air aloft from about 1 mile to 2 miles up, you've got some layer in through here where temperatures are above freezing, snowflakes melt, refreeze on contact at the ground, and all of a sudden you get that ice accretion on effectively everything that rain lands on. So the purples in through here, expanded coverage, northern Georgia, much of the Carolinas, more of that as I was talking about back in through here, both sides of the Mississippi, northern parts of Louisiana included. You've got these two areas, one mostly from overrunning moisture from the Gulf, and I do think some of these areas outside of when you get into the Appalachians are worsened by some of that cold air damming we were talking about, the wedge. Here's the ice forecast this is what I was saying for this swath in through here. Some of these areas where we have the dashed line, you'll have a deep enough layer of cold air at the surface where those melted snowflakes can refreeze into ice pellets, sleet. So that hits the ground, you see it bouncing off the driveway, the mailbox, the windshield. That's actually, in this scenario, if you don't have to be driving around, a good thing, because that doesn't stick to power lines and trees and tree limbs, and it doesn't add weight and bring them down. The freezing rain numbers in through here, we're showing them at 3/4 of an inch plus. The National Weather Service, a lot of our reliable forecast modeling has somewhere in here ice totals that exceed an inch. And if you have numbers like that, trees are coming down, power lines are coming down, traveling on the roads is impossible, and those power outages will be extended, as it'll be awfully difficult, huge cleanup, plus for an extended period of time, it'll be challenging for crews to even get to some of these areas where the outages occur. So plan for that. Plan for several days without power if you're included in this whole swath. Major cities in the Northeast corridor, they're staring down what appears to be our biggest snowstorm in years. I know it's not really saying a lot after the last few, including, it was a couple of years back, 2 or 3 years back, we called it the winter that wasn't. All of these cities have been staring at this, waiting for the overall forecast to change. Little tweaks, as I mentioned, some up and some down. This is what it looks like with our Fox weather model. The cold's moving in. We've got some of the cold weather alerts that precede the storm and make this snow possible. By Saturday evening, this is 9 o'clock Eastern time, you've got Atlantic, the snow has begun, and it's the same kind of snow that Mike Seidel was talking about, super fluffy when you've got these temperatures that are in the single numbers or teens. So yeah, very powdery stuff that we're talking about. Sunday morning, that snow is coming up the I-95 corridor now, that's 5 a.m. By lunchtime, we've got snow in Boston and points north over to the capital region of New York. It's snow through much of the day. There's a little switch up. We may see a changeover as this area of low pressure intensifies. It pushes more of an onshore component to the wind, and that Atlantic air mass, a marine layer effectively, like a coastal front, moves inland. And then right toward the end of this, we may see it wrap up as sleet. It's looking like, instead of just pure snow. But there's a many hour period when we have those temperatures in the teens and it's just snow, which puts us in position to generate big numbers. And it looks like Boston's going to dodge that. We got the winter storm warnings for the whole region. Last 12-inch snow in Boston was 4 years ago, where you got 2 feet. Our forecast right there is now 18 to 24 inches, which I've been saying, unfortunately, the NFL tiebreaker rules robbed us of an AFC title game, classic snow game. They'll be over in Denver, where it'll be cold. They've got some wind. There is that sleet line that kind of creeps in. It looks to stay displaced south and east of Boston. This is an all snow event and a lot of it. You look at these numbers, this actually got bumped up by the Fox Forecast Center earlier this afternoon. 18 to 24 inches. Do think we'll see lower numbers down toward the south coast of Massachusetts, the islands, coastal areas in Rhode Island, as some of that Atlantic air moves in. Food and supplies are flying off the shelves in Roswell, Georgia, as people brace for this powerful storm. Time is running out to prepare before that heavy ice and a little bit of snow roll in. Bob Van Dillen, BVD, is standing by when Fox Weather Now comes right back.
Trivia, a better way to sweeten.
They don't want you to know about it.
Hey, did you know you might get a big cash payout if you were in a car accident up to 1 year ago, even if you weren't driving? Just click the link around this video to see how much you can get. Just answer 5 simple questions, and it only takes 30 seconds. If you got hurt by a driver in last year, you might be owed money without even knowing it. You could get a check just like this one, maybe even more. Click the link now to find out. Tens of thousands of people have received a 5-figure or even a 6-figure check without going to court, paying big legal fees, or dealing with insurance companies or greedy attorneys. Even if you were a pedestrian, rideshare user, cyclist, or a motorcyclist, you can get the justice you deserve. Look at Mia, for example. She had no idea her case was worth anything, but after she came to car accident counsel, she got over $160,000 from an accident that happened a little less than a year ago. No matter what you thought before, you can get what you're owed and can be shocked to see how much more can be than you expected. We can't change the past, but we can help you get a good cash settlement for missed work, hospital bills, and property damage. Here is what happens after you answer the 5 simple questions. In a few minutes, a top injury specialist will tell you if your accident qualifies for major compensation. After that, you just tell them about your case and wait for a check. You can get it in little as 30 days. Your specialist will do everything to help you because they don't get paid unless you win. To see if your accident qualifies for a major cash settlement, click the link below and answer 5 simple questions. Some people feel bad about holding someone accountable and don't want to cause trouble or look like they're scamming the system. Don't let that be you. You deserve compensation. It's your right.
Parts of Mississippi may get the worst of this, truly, of this ice storm. Some areas may see in excess of an inch of ice. We'll be talking with Matt Baums with the Texas Advanced Energy Business Alliance as they get ready for what's to come. Talk about some of the resilience of power grids and how to keep power on in some of these places, if possible. Next hour, we're joined by Mitch Colvin, the mayor of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We've got cities, towns, communities everywhere across the country, from effectively just east of Arizona up through New England, preparing for this mammoth storm. So let's show you the origins of it, which are happening right now. The storm is officially kicking off in the plains before it spreads across more than 40 states. Here's a look at Dallas. Fox Weather's Bane Froney reporting from there. You saw her earlier in the day. They're preparing for some of that icing that moves in. Not just yet. Temperature's at 45 degrees, but that cold air is coming. It's going to be arriving from the north. Here we go. As you head out into West Texas, you've got a chillier rain. You could see the live picture in Dallas that we were just showing you. Some of that Arctic air, though, is funneling in from the north. It's meeting some of that moisture out ahead of the disturbance we showed you ejecting out of the southwest. Some of that's of Pacific origin. It's going to grab more off of the Gulf. And in through here is where we have the issue. You get into some of the mixed precipitation and the icing. The problem is that this tiny corridor, which is clipping Lubbock and points east, that's, call it 100 miles or so, that's going to expand to several hundred. And that's north-south and west to east, unfortunately, as we move forward through time. That's what I mentioned, that sprawling coverage of winter storm warnings from New Mexico all the way up into New England, that the footprint of this storm is remarkable. And you can see that as it gets its bones. It gets all the parts together as we move through the next 12 to 18 hours, and then just starts to crawl its way off to the east. That's another aspect. Not only is it a huge storm, it's long duration. We're stuck with this truly through the balance of the weekend and beyond. That's what it looks like come Sunday morning. I mentioned that whole swath of icing. You get up to the north of that, immediately displaced to the north. That's where we're talking about the biggest snow in many areas, at least half a decade, perhaps up to a decade or more. And into the second half of the weekend, of course, that finds its way southeast and up into New England. There's the live radar, and that tells you the story of the arrival and the clash between two very different air masses, which is how this storm will derive its intensity. Super strong area of Arctic high pressure across the northern tier. That's kind of sloshing its way south. We've had in the northern tier today some wind chills, feels like temperatures that are approaching 50 degrees below zero. It's 60s on the Gulf Coast, and in this border zone where you have that warmth and moisture, which is less dense, more buoyant, goes right up and over the top of that. Cold air is not far. You got 45 in Dallas. I'll be curious to see where we are by the middle part of the evening. It's just 27 in OKC, 15 in Amarillo. And as I mentioned, all of that air is moving further off to the south. Emergency management across Tennessee there, gearing up to take on this weekend's potentially a major storm. You're looking at some of the video of that right there. An ice storm warning has been issued and will go into effect as those cold temperatures and the icing approach the state. The National Weather Service is warning for potential power outages because of that ice. Let's go a little bit farther off to the south and west from there. Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell is locked and loaded down in Oxford, Mississippi. Brandy, we've been talking about these signals across northern parts of Mississippi. There are going to be tweaks as you approach the onset of a winter storm like this. I don't know that we've seen a forecast worsen any more than where you're standing with the amount of ice that we're expecting across the northern part of the state.
Yeah, right now we are going to be under a ice storm warning basically tonight through Sunday night. And of course, the ice accumulations, could be 3/4 of an inch, and we'll continue to follow that forecast to see how it trends up or down in this area. But for now, it's all about preparations because of the potential impact. So one of them being to the tree canopy here. So you can see down the road where we are, you have a lot of these large, tall trees. And once you start to see the freezing rain coming down tomorrow and just coating all of those branches as well as coating power lines themselves, they can start to come down just because of how heavy that ice is. So that's one impact we're going to be keeping an eye out for. Power outages, fallen trees, maybe even power poles if trees are falling on those as well. And then the roads, that's going to be another concern. When you think about maybe 3/4 of an inch of ice coating this road, it might become a skating rink over here. So travel is going to become very dangerous here. But as you take a look down at the roads, you might be able to spot the faint white lines right there. So that's that salt brine mix they've been putting down, not just in the city, but really in the county, as well as our highways surrounding this area too. So preparations are in place. We also have a state of emergency that's been declared by the governor here as well. So another thing we want to talk about, of course, is the locals' impact and even colleges too. So I want to bring in Bob Van Dillen's daughter, Sydney. Thank you for coming to hang out with us. Definitely. I understand that your dad, he stuck around to go live with us. Bob, are you there?
And I've got several questions for little Sydney, Brandy. And number one, I would like to hear. Did she fill up her gas tank like I asked? And also, did she get the little snacks that you should probably get to hang on tight for the next few days?
Your dad wants to know if you filled up your tank with gas and if you got some snacks.
I did. I got some snacks from Walmart, the ones that I could get because everything was basically sold out. I got my car filled with gas to charge my phone if I need to. Okay. I was yesterday, I think, so I should be good. I should be good, yes.
So she's prepared, okay, Bob? She's going to be fine. And you told us that obviously campus is closed on Monday, but y'all have some plans to hang out and just, stay hunkered down, right?
Yeah, definitely. I bought some contractor bags to go sliding down the hills on campus in case if it snows. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't really know what's going on. But school's canceled on Monday, which is always a great thing, for me at least.
But Bob, you said you wanted her to have virtual classes because you're paying for this, right?
Yeah, man, I'm paying for it. You're out of school. What am I paying for over here? Sydney, you need to go back to class. I know it's a Friday afternoon, but you need to go back to class. Or the library at the very least.
He said you need to go back to class or the library. Well, Sydney's done with classes.
I am done for the day. Thank goodness. So I'll be inside the rest of the day, looking for the storm, getting ready for the snow. It'll be a lot of fun, for sure.
All right, well, there you have it, Bob. Your daughter is prepared, and we're going to keep her up to date here, okay? We're all good.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Sydney. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Brandy, we'll be checking back in with you as we move forward through the afternoon and evening. Bob did a good job. He's got her set, all ready to roll. Maybe the forecast awareness. Gonna send a little Fox Weather push notification over, but yeah, Bob is on it. We've got it covered across the South. He's in Atlanta. Brandy there in Oxford, where we're talking about icing. Folks in the Northeast are saying, we haven't had a good winter in half a decade. We haven't had a storm like this in years, truly. We've got this area of low pressure that'll be intensifying as it moves just off the coastline. This is what our exclusive Fox weather model is showing. And at the onset here for the Mid-Atlantic, this is all snow, no problems when you have temperatures that are down into the teens. That will be powdery, dry snow, at least at the onset. Now into Sunday morning, still snowing in DC up to Philly. You notice some of that mixed precipitation, though. That's the sleet starting to spread in from the south. And eventually, as that area of low pressure intensifies, there's going to be some component of onshore flow that's going to push some milder air into the coastline as a bit of a coastal front. And as that happens, we'll likely see right at the tail end of the precipitation shift over to sleet, a little bit of ice, some ice pellets on top of all that snow, and then more Arctic air arrives. Do think, as you move a touch farther off to the north, we've been watching places like Boston, that rain-snow line is displaced well off to your south and east, which is something we haven't been able to say with really any storm over the last several years. This kind of tells that story. We haven't had a foot in a single storm. Boston since 2022, New York City 2021, even longer for Philly, DC, and down into Richmond. Here's a look at the Boston metro area. So into Sunday afternoon, we're in the mid-teens. That's all snow and the powdery snow that I mentioned. Here comes that mixing line down towards Providence over to Plymouth. So I would say for the South Coast, that'll probably eat at your totals just a bit, but you don't see Boston switch over. Western Massachusetts and points north into ski country. This is a nice replenishment, but it's been a pretty good winter so far, and that cold lingers in the aftermath of the storm. This was a bump up from the Fox Forecast Center a little bit earlier this afternoon. 1.5 to 2 feet of snow in the forecast. You haven't had an above average winter there in 4 years, so this will definitely be a big time nudge in that direction. Now into New York, this is into the 12 to 18 range, but if you look closely in through there, out on the southern shores of Long Island, into New York Harbor, some of the 8 to 12 creeping in. That is the direct influence of that Atlantic air moving in and likely acting as a little bit of a faster transition over to that sleet, which will cut down the top end totals. I would say into the city, this is probably more like a 10 to 13-ish, but there is upside if that cold air wins out. So we'll be watching that awfully closely as we move forward through the weekend. Remember, if you've got a weather photo or a video to share during this massive storm, it's 40 states that see some impact, so everybody is feeling it, truly, more than 200 million folks. You can scan the QR code on your screen, tap into the Share It tab, and if you aren't in front of your TV, navigate over to foxweather.com/connect and upload it there. Easy way to show us what you're seeing. If you can do so safely, helps us tell the story of the storm. Melt back into liquid, freeze on contact, and all of a sudden you've got ice sticking to things like power lines, the roads, making travel increasingly hazardous. And that's why the Weather Service in this zone went with ice storm warning to highlight that potential. As we said, it's the most dangerous form of wintry precipitation. Same can be said where we just checked in with Brandy, this whole swath from southwestern parts of Tennessee back into East Texas, where we're seeing the potential